welcome to Doors and Corners, a sci-fi and fantasy film commentary podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Zach. And every Friday we sit down and watch a science fiction or fantasy film and give our 2 cents on its quality, production, story, and trivia.
We watch the film together, but without sounds or visuals provided to avoid copyright issues. But if you do have access, we encourage you to join us and follow along.
Here, we like to keep things casual, and there may be discussions of spoilers or sensitive materials or language. But we do try and keep things clean and family-friendly. Ultimately, the goal of this podcast is to create the experience of us all sitting down and watching this movie together.
So get ready to hit that play button, because we're about to get started.
Damn doors and corners, that's where they get you.
Welcome back to Doors and Corners. I'm Brian.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Patrick.
He's Patrick.
And tonight, we've got a little throwback for you guys. At least in the Marvel universe, this is going back to that early 2000s era with 2004's The Punisher.
Oh, yes. The Punisher. One of their rare R-rated outings.
Before Deadpool made it cool.
Before Deadpool made it cool. This movie was trying to make it cool.
That's true.
Yeah. I think Blade was the only big success that they'd ever done at R rating before this, right?
That sounds
as
about
far
right.
as I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that this was like a big success, unfortunately.
Yeah, it made money, but it didn't make enough. So, my history with the Punisher character in comics started a lot with this movie, actually. I have read probably more Punisher-specific comics than I have the majority of other characters in comic books. I think probably Batman, Superman, maybe Spider-Man are the only ones that I read more of individually. And it started from this movie because a friend of mine let me borrow it, and it was the unrated extended edition. I was way too young to have it, and I hid it from my parents, and I would watch it when nobody else was home.
Naughty.
So, yeah, naughty.
So good. Oh, I'll pray for you, Zach. Jeez.
And I was already a dad when this movie came out, so.
Ooh. Yeah, I was baby.
How old do you feel, Brian?
Every now and then when we have specific life things, every now and then I'm like, that's right. But no, it's weird to think that my my oldest daughter in this film are almost exactly the same age.
Wow. Yeah. Punishers are fascinating. What's your guys' history with this film?
I was like, okay. Yeah, no, it was funny, my introduction to the Punisher was honestly through being in the military. I was aware of the character, but I was such a DC guy growing up, and Marvel was, I knew about Marvel. The X-Men cartoon was probably the most Marvel I ever went down growing up. And so I was aware of the Punisher, but besides just knowing what he was and seeing the logo, I didn't really get into it. But when I was in the Army, it was, he had a presence. His emblem, and there was a lot of military culture around the Punisher and that whole idea, which continued for a long time. Anybody who's seen...
It's still there.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I know that I had somebody ask me when they saw American Sniper, the Chris Kyle story, that, he had Punisher... the Punisher skull like stenciled on his rifles a few times. And people ask me, they didn't really do that, did they? Oh yeah, they did. 100% accurate. A lot of guys in the military, and actually Chris Kyle specifically was actually a big fan when he was in active duty over there. So that was actually my introduction to, I would call it the culture, at least one part of the culture behind the Punisher, which I'll be interested in talking about a little bit later in this podcast. Beyond that, I actually was more excited about this movie because I was a big fan of Thomas Jane. He's one of he's probably my favorite actor that didn't get like the big breaks I was hoping he would. If you listen to this podcast, you've already heard Mr. Thomas Jane's voice because he is the actor who plays Detective Miller in the TV show The Expanse, who speaks the immortal lines, watch your doors and corners. So yeah, he's a fun little way. He's like part of this podcast. So that's my, and I think that this was one of the better swings Marvel took in the early 2000s. X-Men 1 and 2 Spider-Man 1 and 2 are kind of, the highlights from that era. But I think this is one of the other, not amazing, but solid outings that they had.
Yeah. What about you, Pat?
Well, um, so I don't recall. I feel like I saw this in theaters. I couldn't tell you one way or another, but I just knew I loved every part of it. Back in 2004, I was very into wrestling, and not the big bad guy, but the big muscle that he sends, and they destroy the entire apartment building fighting each other. That guy was a wrestler, and so I was
Oh.
like, oh, well, so it's in a movie. That's cool, And that was back before wrestlers were in movie. Thank you, The Rock. You ruined everything. No, I'm just kidding. But I just I love this movie because it tries to stay grounded while also doing some outrageous things, and I like that.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like I was telling you guys earlier, when we watch Spawn, that's just straight guilty pleasure, and I know it's a bad movie, and I don't care. This is a good movie, and it's also kind of a guilty pleasure as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm in a very similar vein as that. I recognize that this movie has some major problems for it. S- some parts of it are absolutely fantastic. It has some pretty mediocre reviews, but it also has a pretty high audience score even today, and it's remembered fondly by a lot of people. But in the wake of other Punisher adaptations, the we'll get to it in a couple weeks here, but the 2008 Punisher Warzone with Ray Stevenson that was not well received, and then the recent redo with John Barenthal in the role, starting on Netflix's Daredevil and then getting his own TV show, and time of recording shortly coming to reprise his role on Disney's Daredevil Born Again. A lot of people fell in love with the character that from that outing, and this was the first try, or actually technically the second try. There was a Dolph Lundgren led movie in 1989 that is not fondly remembered, but this is the one that most people remember as being the major introduction to the character.
Yeah. Yeah, I was completely unaware of the Dolph Lundgren film until I think after this film. For me, it was like a trivia fact. Like, no, there was one, and I still haven't seen it, and maybe we'll get to it one day. That'd be actually kind of amusing, I'm sure, to visit. But yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well,
So this particular movie, the character of the Punisher, it should be noted, is somewhat controversial time of recording. They've actually recently tried to reinvent the character, giving him a new symbol and such, because some people have taken his symbol, his message, his mission, to an extent that some people believe is inappropriate or too far, as a lot of political and religious polarizing are happening across our nation and cultures at the moment. And so it's really interesting to be able to talk about. And this symbol used in this movie, which was an original symbol, stylized version of the original, is the one that most people actually recognize and is used in a lot of these bumper stickers and T-shirts and like Chris Kyle. It was this Punisher skull that was on his gun.
mm-hmm.
So
This is the movie that too, for a lot of people, linked the Punisher skull with the Latin phrase. I can't pronounce the Latin phrase appropriately.
Sic vis pacem parabellum.
Yeah, I mean, isn't this the film where that kind of linkage also happened in culture?
Yes, and they eventually tied it back into the comic books. That same phrase, because that is an actual phrase used in a number of militaries, with its translation meaning "if you want peace, prepare for war." So you have a lot of people who say that the Punisher skull represents sic vis pacem parabellum, where others say that it represents murder and the failure of the system.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
but we could talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, I was going to say, just in general, I do actually love in comics in general that as they've been around for a while, and they have to. I mean, comics have to reinvent themselves, right? Every decade or so, just to stay relevant. And some of those reinventions work, some of them don't. But it does make those conversations interesting to me because, do you always go with the original is always kind of gospel in a way? Or, there's times where reinvention is so key, it's so influential that it does actually kind of redefine. I mean, you can go to some of the, Batman is a great example of, you go back to like the pure originals and it's like, most people wouldn't like it if that was still like held to gospel. So I always find it interesting when you look at comic book characters and the themes around them, the symbolism around them, and over the decades, it's as they change and people kind of argue about it, I find it interesting.
Yeah, very true. Lots of examples of that, but I won't go too far into it because I will dive down that rabbit hole and I will not come back up for air.
Oh, but yeah, why don't you give us a quick
DC
rundown?
is having its absolute comic book universe, and reinventing Batman is a blonde who's So this
are you serious?
2000 and oh yeah, look up Absolute Batman, otherwise referred to as the Batman who lifts. He's a giant hulking tank of a man who is no longer rich because to be rich is to be evil. Superman is angsty. Superman is an angsty refugee whose mother is still alive, and he came to Earth when he was in his teens, not as a baby. And Wonder Woman was raised in hell by a demon. So, lots of really interesting stuff going on there, but that's an entirely different thing. I like the revised Superman S. I think it's pretty cool. But this is The Punisher. It came out in 2004. It is rated R. It is 2 hours and 4 minutes long. Directed by Jonathan Hensley. To list out all of the writers would take away all of my breath, so I'll just go ahead and say that it was written by Jonathan Hensley and Michael France. The stars of this guy are Thomas Jane, John Travolta, Ben Foster. Sorry, my screen just glitched here and took away the people I was going to mention. Rebecca Romaine and special guest star Roy Schneider.
And Will Patton. I love Will Patton.
Will Patton, thank you. That was the other one I was missing.
Yeah.
And there's a comedian in the movie named John Pignette who has passed away years ago, but he's one of the two men in the apartment building. He's the bigger man. Got some pretty good comedy specials. Yeah, he passed away, at least probably 10 years ago.
Wow.
Okay, he's not given top billing here. Yeah,
no, not at all. No, nor would he. Yeah, but
Okay.
I did like him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
All right. Let's go ahead and get this guy started. Brandon, you want to count us down?
Well, you do. Yeah, as usual, encourage you to follow along, watch this film with us. We are watching the theatrical release, not the extended release, if anybody's wondering. So, yeah. Gonna hit that
you can find the extended release.
Yeah, you gotta find the DVD on eBay right now to watch that. Yeah, no digital that I could even find that, which is interesting. So, anyways, we're gonna hit that play button in 3, 2, 1, go.
Play.
Yeah, we all had to rent this on Amazon. So if anyone wants to start donating towards our podcast rental fund, I'm just kidding. We have a Patreon. I'm just kidding. We don't have that either.
A GoFundMe.
I love that this is... I always, for some reason, and I don't know why, because it was in Marvel and X-Men, I associate, the Marvel kind of real logo with like Iron Man and kind of the beginning of the MCU. And it's like, no, they were doing that all the way back with X-Men and
I like this beginning. I actually really dig this. I haven't seen this in years. I really like how film noir this feels. Like almost like Sin City, but it's not that kind of movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
when I was
go ahead. I was just to say they really did want to and try to, make this a gritty, grounded film, but then parts of it, just went in different directions. Well, I actually want to talk about that a little bit later as far as just the creative differences between the people making this film. But go ahead.
I was just going to say, I love the music to this movie. I think that it's just great, and it has that, like you said, kind of a noir and I think almost Western feel. And part of that is because the composer to this thing isn't even like a major composer. He's an Italian composer who composes for Italian movies. By the name of Carlo Ciliotto, I think is how you would pronounce it.
Hmm.
And
I like him already.
yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
He
Well,
does spaghetti westerns, or he did. He seems to be retired and or dead now.
Yeah, they right here at the beginning, the fact we're in Tampa, I wanted to bring this up right away, just fun little trivia. The budget of this film, because this really quickly, this was kind of part of the big Marvel sell-off. They were in big financial trouble, so they just started, fire sailing all their properties. And Artisan, I believe it was Artisan, bought the Punisher along with a few others. But then Artisan was in the middle of, they greenlit a film. And I believe they had greenlit it for like $60 million, something like that. It was supposed to be a big action movie with a big budget. And then Lionsgate was buying Artisan while this film was like in pre-production. And they let it keep going, but they cut the budget in half, which was just brutal to this film. We're going to talk about that a few times, where this movie suffers from, a very truncated budget. But this opening, the intention was to have this big opening sequence that kind of establishes Frank Castle and his military background. I believe it was, in Desert Storm and a few things. And it was, this is a good opening, but it definitely was not what they were intending when they wrote this film and pitched it to Thomas Jane.
Yeah, going for more of that tight mob focus instead of something more warlike, showing off him in combat, like as a special forces soldier, making it more tension related than action related. It's a smart way to save budget.
It is. They use their budget well, but this action scene, along with the final action scene, I think definitely you can tell that they were shot, on a budget, because they're well done, but you would have expected bigger for a Punisher film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things when we get to Punisher or Warzone, that they do well is the big, gross, bombastic, ugly action.
Yeah.
Though, I will say, this does have one of my favorite superhero fight scenes in it of all time.
Oh, yeah.
When it gets its action good, oh, does it get its action good.
Yeah, they really, it's funny, you almost don't think of this as an action scene. The way this is shot, this is really just, a gun is shot, that's why we think of it as an action scene, but it's almost just a character introduction more than anything.
Yeah. Because you're just like, ooh, where's the character? Where's the character? Where's the character? You're not even realizing that you're looking right at him.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just, I didn't know. The first time I saw this, I had no idea that was Thomas Jane that they just shot. I was super confused. I'm like, what does this have to do with anything? I hadn't seen the movie yet. Of course, because it was my first time. I didn't really have like the face and the voice to put to him.
Yeah.
Hmm.
These
Thomas
FBI...
Jane really liked these.
Yeah. It's just... This actor's name right here, I'm forgetting his name. He has a small but pivotal role in this film, and he does a good job.
Uh-huh.
I do love his torture scene later. It's one of the funnier scenes in this movie.
Yeah. By the way, if anybody is going into this movie having never seen it, this movie has 2 torture scenes in it. One of them is the funniest stinking torture scene in any movie ever. The other one is one of the absolute most brutal I have ever seen in a movie. Like, it's the reason this movie is R, even more than the topless waitresses that pop up in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, the actor's name is Eddie Jemison. And I was sitting here...
There's topless waitresses?
Briefly.
I'm just kidding.
It's like a 3-second scene.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever. You saw this as a teenage boy. You know that they're in here.
I know.
But yeah. Eddie Jemison. I was watching this movie with my wife just a couple weeks ago because she'd never seen it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, come look at this. And I was just like, I have seen this guy. Where the heck have I seen him? It was driving me crazy. He's one of Ocean's 11.
Yeah, that's right. He was the tech guy.
Thumbtack.
Yep. The bumbling tech guy. Introduction to the Punisher in his tidy whities right there.
Right. Yeah. Like this surprise party weirdly being at the scene of a sting. I don't know, a little strange. but budget, right?
Yeah, they had and parts of this movie move like just so fast. Like right here, we move through this whole thing where he's retired. He's like going on. I mean, we're 6 minutes in, including the credits, and we've already, he's like going home to his family life.
Going to the London desk. Now, this partner though, this black guy, you'll notice that around this time, every movie, or I mean, even still today, has got to have a very diverse cast. And there was always the token black guy. This movie doesn't have that, which is strange. And the reason why is because it was the partner, and there was going to be an extended plot line going into the partner having betrayed him to the bad guys, and him like kind of dealing with that. And they ended up having to cut it, and the result is a very monochromatic movie.
Yeah.
Like even the thugs here.
Generic white guys in black suits.
Much to the detriment of the movie, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know you and I have talked about this before, but this movie does suffer from, unfortunately, henchmen that are not memorable. A few memorable
and
deaths.
They should be.
But they should be, especially when we get to the assassination of the family later on. So I'm gonna talk about John Travolta really fast, if you don't mind, because he's
for it.
And say, I know that you're not a big fan of him in general, Zach.
Nope, I like him.
I like him in one or two films. I actually am a fan of Pulp Fiction. I know we disagree on that, and that's totally fine. I was curious what you think, Pat. Are you a Travolta fan, or what are your feelings about Travolta in general?
Well, he'd be one of those people I'd put on the list that Zach posed to us about guys that you could do a movie where all their memorable characters met up to do something. He'd be on that list too. Gosh, I don't mind him. Like he doesn't. That sounds stupid to say, but like I believed him in Swordfish. I believe him in this, so he's doing his job. Like at a certain point,
Okay.
Oh yeah,
I guess that's how I kind of look at it.
Yeah, I would never sit there and say, "Oh my gosh, he's a terrible actor." I don't like him. I don't like how he does a performance. I just, and believe it or not, I technically met him. I mean, I was 2, but
well, tell us the story.
Filming up in.
Well, did you at least shake his hand?
No, my sister did though. But yeah, he was filming a movie up in my hometown of Auburn, California, called Phenomenon.
Yep, I remember that movie.
And
nice.
That was shot in Auburn, right? Yeah.
That's what I just said. Yes, sir.
Sorry, I talked over you.
Well, and real quick, this guy who's like the second in command or whatever.
Yep, Will Patton.
He's the white coach on Remember the Titans. Yep. So like that's a lot of acting range there. I like that.
Oh, Will Patton.
He was also
the best
in
actor
Armageddon.
In this movie.
Yeah. He was like, I would. Yeah.
Well, he was
normal guy.
Yeah. Well, he has this competent, menacing quality about him, but also can be very. Yeah, because you remember the Titans. I really found him memorable in Armageddon as Bruce Willis's best friend in that movie.
Yeah.
What are you doing, bringing a gun on a spaceship, man?
Yeah. But he's like, to me, he's much more menacing than John Travolta in this film. It was interesting though. This whole scene to me is an interesting example of, on paper, this is a scene where you're really establishing, just John Travolta's character and how kind of brutal he is and cold he is. But it's almost played too flat, if that makes sense. Like when they were kicking him at the very beginning, it was very like one guy was kicking him like very much like I'm not really trying to hurt you. And the way that, it's a weird mixture of not intensely, these are dangerous people who you want to look out for. It's like on paper, it would read that way. But the way that was all filmed to me was just flat, if that makes sense.
I always liked it. I do think that, the performance is a little flat, but I think that it is a good villain moment. In having just kind of showing what kind of villain you're dealing with, and he's not going to shoot this guy who might still be useful to him, but he is going to shoot the person who's actually responsible.
Yeah.
It's not the idiot who was already doing this stuff. It was the guy who let his son go. It shows the character of the villain decently enough that where I'm like, okay, I get what I'm dealing with here.
Well, yeah, it establishes it just fine. Like I said, on paper, I have no problem with it. I think Travolta either could have been more like coldly just like cruel about it, like sadistic about it, or gone a little more into the I'm a villain, and had a little fun with it, but it just ended up in the middle somewhere. It's just odd to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much about it. But that's
I
my.
think
Go
he
ahead.
does play this movie a little bit too much like a cold sociopath to the point of where he's just boring.
Yeah.
He's not interesting to watch.
Yeah, I find Travolta specifically, and I said I think he's good in certain films. I think he's the weakest main cast member in this film, like by a long shot.
And he's the entire reason it's filmed in Miami.
Yep. He didn't want to leave Florida. I know that you're not a big New York fan, Zach, but Thomas Jane really wanted to shoot this in New York, and I think his vision would have been better realized in New York personally. Although with the right work and the right, script, you can make it work anywhere. But
yeah,
I think if they had gone a little bit more I want to see the version of this movie that Thomas Jane has talked about a few times in different interviews over the years.
yeah, see that. This scene was a little weird to me. I get what they're doing, setting up the son and the relationship, but I very much believe that if you're going to shoot a scene like this, there needs to be an activity going on between two people, when really they're just kind of like talking at each other.
Well, yeah, instead of him just bouncing the ball.
Well, but his son was hiding out in the doghouse because he doesn't want to go.
Yeah.
No, I understand why. It makes sense. It really shows, like, oh, his son is hiding from him. He's upset and stuff like that. But I don't know. I feel like there needs to be more interaction than just talking in a scene that pivotal and that goes on that long.
Do you know with your NIMDb, were the sons of Travolta, were they actually related, or even the same actor with different makeup on? Because they look really similar.
Oh, I don't know. Let me check on that.
I was just because that opening scene and then him there on the the corners slab, and then the son that's still alive. They just, if they're not the same actor, they definitely seem like they'd be related in real life.
They are the same actor.
Okay, they are. Okay, I'm not
James
crazy.
Carpinello plays both Bobby and John Saint.
Okay.
Good catch. I never noticed that.
Yeah.
And I've seen this movie a lot.
So funny. And in Amazon, it doesn't actually list John Saint. It only lists Bobby because Bobby's the one that's alive. That's so weird.
You know what's kind of fun? He later appeared in the TV show Gotham, where he played one of the Falcone crime family members.
Oh, so he's good at being a professional, professional gangster.
I mean, with as much Italian as it is certainly in that guy, no doubt.
Yeah, I know Thomas Jane put a lot of work into prepping for this film. He took this really seriously. Like he wasn't a a superhero. Like, he liked comics, but not superhero comics. And they had to sell him on this film like that this isn't like a superhero type of comic. And once he got into it, he really got into it. You can see here, he got himself in shape. He spent I believe several months, doing some training with SEALs and prep work, and really he didn't just jump into this and kind of phone it in. He really tried to bring what he could to this, and I really think that it shows up in a lot of his scenes.
Yeah.
Very brief introduction to a pivotal character later there.
Also, this set of sequences, pretty much from when we jumped from the Saints over here, highlights one of my biggest problems with this movie, which is the editing. The editing in places, especially there, it's jumpy, it's abrupt, it's just too stark and sharp.
Well, it's not super creative either. It doesn't preserve energy super well. It's like a film student edited it versus, somebody really, they kind of edited it just keeps momentum and energy going.
Yeah. Because what they were doing there is really intelligent. They were doing this thing where they were paralleling the two characters. The one guy's identifying the body of his son, and the other guy is there snorkeling with his son and having fun, and it's setting up the conflict between the two and the reasons and the mirroring and yada yada yada.
Dang, they were
That
giving
doesn't
each
mean
other
anything.
doomy eyes for sure.
They're married. It's okay.
Him and his wife. Oh, totally.
Oh yeah, gonna catch you on the beach so
But
we can
it's
have a heart to heart,
important.
and
Talk about babies.
yeah. I mean,
Such a
I'm
happy
glad
couple.
I'm glad they do give a little establishment to his family before the brutal
Yeah.
next couple scenes.
Well, because that's his whole reason for doing what he does,
Yeah.
man. He's got nothing left to lose.
Yeah. But something that I know Zach and I have talked about before, and I'm trying to think if I have with you, Pat, but the Punisher, he tends to kill most of his main villains, right, Zach?
That is correct. He does not leave them in many pieces.
Yeah. So, he doesn't his main villain is almost like just like crime itself, right? Like, just the whole broken mess of the world. And his family was killed in a random act of violence, not like a targeted personal attack, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Which is one of the... I understand why they're doing it for this movie,
Yeah.
but I almost am sad that they do it for this movie, where it's almost like making Batman, the person who killed Batman's family, part of a conspiracy against the Waynes instead of just a criminal of Gotham who is desperate and mean, Well,
that's where I feel like this movie didn't trust the audience to not have, a very classic structured villain where, there's a personal connection and the villain has a vendetta and there's a whole thing, which is interesting because, Batman, that's part of his whole thing, right? That it's just this, the city itself, kind of killed, his parents and turned Bruce into Batman. And it's, there's a version of this again where they could have done that, I feel like. And Thomas Jane has said in multiple interviews that, Batman Begins came out the year after this movie, 2005, and kind of taught Hollywood a lesson about what people could and would accept in film with Nolan's work. And he's lamented a few times, like, if we'd only made this movie like 2 years later, we could have gotten a studio to go along with some things that they wanted to do, and it would have been interesting to see that version.
Yeah, very true. But this is an interesting thing, setting up the evil of the wife.
Yeah. This is just a chilling scene right here. Just
Here's a family. Yeah. Setting up the relationship between them is, I would say, one of the more strained parts of this movie.
Yeah. That's pretty. Sorry.
Beautiful sunrise.
Nice sunrise.
Sunrise.
Yep.
Wait, what was pretty? Are we talking the wife, the sunset? Like what? I missed that. Sorry.
Oh,
I mean... Oh, actually, there is something that's really pretty coming up here in a minute, even if it is slightly defaced.
Yeah. Yep. The I freaking love 1911s, and they do look cool, like in a still, but man, I would never want to actually use them. Interesting here too that
we're talking, of course, about the cult 1911s.
Yeah, interesting way that they make the symbol in the shirt actually a gift from his son.
Yeah, and also like, why would anybody be having this weird symbol shirt? It's just like, well, they got it from a tourist trap in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Like, why not?
Now, I know that this version of the symbol became so popular, but I personally think this is the best version of the symbol they ever did. I've owned 2 or 3 shirts with that exact version of it on them. So,
are you saying that you don't like the weird stark white magazine pouch teeth from the original 1974 Spider-Man number 129?
It has its place, but no.
Yeah,
oh man, so I hate gangsters with like the stupid like the Tech 9s and the Mac 10s, and as a gun guy, they're like my least favorite guns. I just hate them.
You know, it's our fault. In all those video games where we could loot the bodies of the guys, we sold them all back to the dealers, and then they gave them right back to the new bad guys.
I also hate it so much when a guy, an actor, is holding like a Tech 9, and he's got his hand around the air-cooled barrel. Like, please shoot that while you hold it there, because you're going to burn your hand, and I want to watch it happen.
Right? God, Tech 9s are just... Yeah. Mac 10s, Tech 9s are some of my most hated as well. They're such inefficient guns. Any type of handheld, pistol-esque, fully automatic gun is just not going to be a useful gun.
Yeah. The smallest you go, in my opinion, and have something that, is still cool is like MP5s is a classic that I do enjoy. And
even
then, like,
I have some issues with some MP5s.
Well, certain versions of it are less than others, but there's definitely some kind of classic military versions of it I like. And then obviously the P90 I'm partial. Yeah, both of those is Stargate, obviously, so I think that's part of my bias.
Well, the P90 is just cool.
The P90 is very cool.
But yeah, here we have better known as Chief Brody from Jaws.
Yep.
Roy Schneider, also leading actor on Sequest.
Oh, I love that show. It's not a great show, but I still love it.
Oh, it's not a great show. It's not even a good show. But it's worth loving.
It has great moments, I will say, but as a whole, it's definitely B-level 90s TV. Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
I actually own that whole show on Blu-ray.
Oh, goodness.
Yep.
This is an interesting scene to me as they start fighting, because he just saw his mom get killed. And instead of just running out there like a dodo, and I saw a couple people even critique it for this, just like, why is he just going out there? You just watch it happen.
Training.
These are guys who are trained, right? And they know that if they just run out there,
there was also another wrestler, by the way.
Was he?
I was a different wrestler.
Okay.
Anyway.
Oh.
But yeah, that's honestly training, man. Why run out there unarmed? You heard the gunshot. You know what's going on.
I like, too, that they establish... I mean, in very small amount of dialogue in this scene, they do establish that his dad also, has a history of some kind, has skill and knowledge.
Was in law enforcement somewhat, yeah. Or something.
Yeah, I mean, they're very vague about it.
1911s.
Yeah, but just, I mean, the fact that they're both calmly taking care of this, oh, man.
Mm. Yeah.
That actually would have been a harder shot one-handed to the distance the guy was out on the boat, I'm just saying. It was like 40, 50 feet. And he was just like casually one-handed it, and that's a harder shot than you might guess.
Yeah, but he's just out there to kill and have a good time.
You did.
I love that they actually lit the stunt guy on fire for that. You could see the mesh mask used to protect him from the blast. It looks almost like a Michael Myers mask. But I love practical stunts like that.
Yeah. So you were talking about earlier about wishing the henchmen were more distinct, because we have this guy who is just shown there, hiding, kind of, ready to surprise them. And he, this is the guy that just killed his dad. And he has a very memorable death at the end of this film. And I just wish he was more memorable, because then you would connect back to it faster and easier when it comes back around.
Exactly. He's present throughout the entire movie. And then they had the one guy, the one actor or henchman, who killed the kids hiding underneath the deck, and he has a memorable death later in the movie, and he's constantly there. But there's like nothing physically distinct about them outside of like, ooh, a little bit of long white hair or something like that. And it's just kind of this missed opportunity to create these little memorable side characters that really add color to the movie.
Yeah. Now this up to this point, this whole action sequence I've actually found to be like very solid. And here's where you were talking about editing. They just were too indulgent in this.
So there are a bunch of scenes that are cut from this movie in order to cut down runtime, right? And they need to stay underneath a budget, and they need to keep it a reasonable length, and they decide to have a full 2-minute long, not very good, not very exciting car chase just through the Miami hills here.
I think they're in Puerto Rico right now, but yeah.
Puerto Rico, yeah. But why are they doing this? Why do we need this little jump here? Is it to build tension? Oh, is he going to get there in time? I get that, but that can be done much more quickly, much more efficiently. Because even as we're talking, they're still not done.
Yeah. Yeah, this goes on for quite a while. when they get to the dock and they're like, the other truck's trying to ram through, like this goes on for a while. And it is the only part of this film's action that I'll openly criticize.
No, because you said you wanted to criticize the climax and the ending.
Well, that one it's well done. I just wish it's too short. I think that's a good example of where they lost part of their budget. I think what they did is great. It's just it should have been more.
I agree with that.
Yeah, no, I mean that one. I have no problem with what they did. I just wish there was more of it. This one, I wish they had actually changed it.
The chase is still going too.
Yep.
It just keeps going and going. I like the detail here of the family climbing out of the truck because I actually believe that they're injured. I actually believe this quite a bit more than most other car chases. Like, they're banged up, they're hurt, they're moving like they'd have the adrenaline in the system and everything.
Yeah.
But they look and move like they just went through hell.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
Well, and the one thing I will say that's very effective here, this is, a helpless couple. This mom and her son, this very much does its job to establish, just one, how evil these guys are, two, Frank Castle's pain, I guess, in a way that's, it's effective, because this is, man, to any parent, I can't even imagine, when I was editing Minority Report, and Pat and I we're talking about, as dads watching that film. This is another one that it's like I just can't imagine as a father, processing this.
I'm not a parent, so I don't have any feelings on that. Also, I hate that little scene. Again, another editing thing where it shows them kind of fall. It's literally probably a third of a second, but it's enough that you know exactly what happened when you don't want to know exactly what happened.
No, you don't
need
need
to.
To.
That mystery.
I have questions. So he was that far behind?
Well, and
because the truck would have a hell of a time backing out of that.
Well, that's the
too. Because the truck's turning around.
Yeah, the truck's down at the end of the pier here. Although we do have a movie cliche coming up here that I just hate.
Okay, good.
This is a powerful bit of acting, I think, by Thomas Jane. It's when he looks up here, just
yeah.
That little moment right there where he one last little embrace and then he just picks up a shotgun. It's just I love it. But this
also the
go ahead.
The music.
Yeah.
It's subtle. It's not a big it's just that dun.
But right here we have the villains walk out, and apparently, they read the script and knew that he was out of ammo here. Because instead of shooting him again, or being worried that he's about to shoot one of them with a shotgun, they just coldly stand there, looking all cool in their sunglasses. And it's it just, I don't like that cliche.
I mean, because it's not even a gun where a slide locks back or something,
Yeah, they would have no way of knowing he was out. So one of them was just I'm cool if I get shot right now. I also find the son kind of
pretty one.
Yeah, the pretty one. He's a little pretty, and he doesn't come across as dangerous. He comes across as just a kind of I don't know. He doesn't come across as dangerous. It's just somebody who's maybe he's not supposed to be. Maybe he's just supposed to be I'm just a
daddy's boy.
Daddy's boy who goes to the gym a lot, because that's what he looks like.
No, you're totally right in your criticism of that. Where again, kind of like with what's his face in this thing, Travolta. I feel that this son is just too much of a cold sociopath. He needs to have a little bit more fire and pizzazz. Yeah. Because later in the movie, when Mickey is describing the Saint family, he describes him as an absolute psychopath and sadist. So yeah. It's just, they needed a little bit more there.
I do appreciate right there that they did not go for the movie cliche that a gun bullet throws you backwards. He got shot and then fell forward, which is how the body would actually react. The whole guns throw people backwards, which if you understand basic physics would also throw you backwards in turn. But I appreciate that. Go ahead.
I also appreciate
they're wasting so much money in California.
Oh my God! Right, especially right now. I appreciate that they straight up shoot him in the chest and then blow him up with gasoline, right? Which, by the way, if you want to be blown up, you do want to be blown up by gasoline, especially if it's not diesel, because it's mostly fire and not as much pressure.
Yeah.
So
very pretty explosion.
This is the most believable form of a survival of an explosion, I would say. Even if it's not actually believable.
Yeah.
But I like that they have a good reason why these guys would sit there and go, oh yeah, he's freaking dead. We shot him in the chest and blew him up.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't one of those, he fell off the cliff into the river. We dropped him into the ocean. He is certainly dead type of BS, you know? And this is the beginning of one of my all-time favorite tropes. Man too angry to die.
Yeah. Depending on...
I'm talking too much.
I was going to say, there is a...
Hey, you know what? It worked for Darth Maul.
Exactly. And John Wick.
Yeah. If you did perfectly hit in the chest where you missed the... is it the sternum? Like the big connecting bone right in the middle? If you were just...
Yes, that's the sternum.
Yeah, they were just to the side of it. If they were just to the side of it but didn't hit the lung, but they were on the opposite side from the heart, like there's a tiny little window there that you actually could survive getting hit. But man, you would have to be very lucky with the shot placement.
And this is a stretch, I know, okay? But if you want to get shot, you want to get shot on the right side of your chest, okay? No gut shot, no liver shot, no stomach shot, no heart shot.
Yeah.
Get shot in the lung. You can survive on one lung. You can survive with some broken ribs. Yeah, it's going to suck. Literally a sucking chest wound, and there's going to be problems that come with that galore. But if you're going to get shot in the chest, you kind of want it to be like right there.
Yeah, yeah. Because you're above all the intestines. You're on the opposite side from the heart. There's it's a stretch, sure. But it's not one of those, there's other people who survive things. It's like, I'm sorry, there's no human being alive that would survive that unless they literally got shot next to a hospital.
Right. Thankfully, this guy got shot next to a medicine man.
Oh, yeah, witch doctor, yeah. So here we have, again, a little bit of that establishing of the Will Patton and the wife, just the beginnings of the hints of jealousy before Frank Castle even starts his little scheme.
Yeah.
It's I was going to talk about this club also. That's right. I read this in the behind the scenes. This is a bank that they set dressed for this club, Saints and Sinners. And this so does not look like a club that has any sinners in it. Only people who, occasionally smoke weed and think that they're bad.
That's the way to put it.
You know what I mean? It's just like, and I don't like his pipe. I'm sorry, I know I'm nitpicking, but it's just a weird scene.
This whole scene is strange to me. But yeah, the club isn't right. It's just missing a liveliness.
Yeah, it doesn't feel dangerous or interesting at all.
Yeah,
and again,
way to put it.
I was thinking of one of my favorite filmmakers of all time is Michael Mann, who directed like Heat and Collateral and Miami. Yeah, he was the Miami Vice guy back in the day, and then he did the movie version.
And Black Hat, and that great classic.
All right, well, we won't talk about that one, but his nightclub scene in Collateral, and then also his in Miami Vice, which is he knows how to shoot a nightclub scene. Like, this is what a nightclub should feel like, and what we just saw was not it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's apparently, if you want to get laid by your wife, you should kill one of your family's great enemies.
And buy her earrings. Don't forget that.
I mean, in that family, that makes sense. Sometimes all I got to do is take out the garbage. I'm just kidding.
I married a sex therapist. I just have to say hi.
Oh, God.
The establishment with the
oh, jeez. Oh, my gosh.
This movie's too straight-laced. See, with Spawn, all the jokes were in the movie, but in this movie, we've got to make them because the movie's serious for the most part.
I do love here that this house is wrapped up, and we get back to this gun case here. These two, very expensive 1911s are sitting here, but all the other guns are cleaned out. Like, the only two left, they were left for him, which I always find interesting. That's somebody
Yeah,
cleaned
because
out
there
the
were two
house.
single action armies that were sitting there, I think.
Well, and the cabinets that they pulled the shotguns out of were also full of other guns, you know, and they're just. I just always found it funny the 1911s were still sitting in the case. And he has to break the
Like,
glass.
why'd you leave those guns, man?
You know, so. Yeah, like.
He didn't have the key.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's.
He's gonna do something bad. I know it.
So there's two more here. I lied a little bit. I'm sorry. I forgot about
The
these
music.
two.
The music tells me something. He's getting ready to do something bad.
Well, this is I'm now
redemptive.
motivated. I got my abs back.
This is one of my great complaints of the movie, okay? I think that there was some deleted scene or sequence, or maybe even never filmed, where he's in recovery and he is galvanized against the enemies, you know, where he chooses this path of punishment, of vengeance.
Isn't that the black guy from Gladiator? Did he like fix his wounds and stuff? Isn't that the Spaniard? Oh wait, wrong movie. My bad.
That
My
is
bad.
not Jaimin Hansu. I love
I know.
Jaimin
Who's
Hansu.
amazing, by the way. I know. I'm just.
Love that man.
I do love the music here.
Mhm.
Again,
I'm
I mean,
gonna
this.
sit this one out.
I'd say,
Hang.
yeah.
Great
the
voice, great.
again, I mean, kind of the Western vibes right there. Very much, you know, just the, back for revenge. Nobody's gonna stop me.
And then, yeah, this is another one of those things where everything moves real fast. Suddenly he has an apartment. He's back in Miami. You know?
I mean, he's the kind of guy who would have like a,
Cash stowed away.
Yeah, like a
bag.
Yeah, he would have a
Like
storage locker with, bunch of cash, a bunch of guns,
True.
and the Claymore, which it's one of your favorites, right, Zach?
Mm-hmm.
No, he likes C4.
No, I have that shirt. You know the shirt, the front towards enemy?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, at the same time, C4 is the explosive in a thingy.
Claymore. Here we get the introduction to the three friends.
Yep. Taken right out of a Punisher War Journal comic.
Is this Mad Max? I'm just kidding.
He builds himself a nice car here all of a sudden.
Right?
It's a Gran Torino, isn't it? Or
Hell if I know, I'm not a car guy. But it's a nice one. I like it.
I still think of
missed this song.
I still think of Mystique every time I see her.
I have officially moved on from Mystique, and I now think of First Officer Una Chin Riley of the
that's funny.
Starship Enterprise.
Strange New Worlds, yeah. See, and it's funny is I know it's her, but her fashion in that film is so, and not that film, that series is enough that it makes me think of the character and not the actress. Which I mean that as a compliment.
That's good.
Ben Foster, a very early Ben Foster.
I love Ben Foster. He is a vastly underrated actor. I always wished he'd make it big.
Well, that is Ben Foster.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We had him in another podcast, which was our Warcraft episode where he played Medivh, the mage.
Yep.
And he's so good. I specifically remember him from movies like 310 to Yuma and Pandorum and sadly X-Men 3.
Yeah.
The Last Stand.
Well, we have two, we have both Mystique and he was Angel, right?
Mm-hmm. He was Angel.
Yeah. Two X-Men in this. And X-Men 3 Last Stand was what, a year before this?
2007.
Oh gosh, this is way after this. I forgot.
Or 6.
Well, because X-Men was 2000. Was X-Men United? Was that just like 2002 or 3?
2003.
They took a while to get to X-Men Last Stand, didn't they?
They did. All kinds of production problems.
Can I put the t-shirt on? Yes, there we go. Let's see it. Come on. Oh,
look at that.
I want to see the logo.
So
Glory shot.
I also admit, okay, this is a weird thing to bring up, I guess, but I think that this era of how in shape the actors needed to be was kind of a sweeter spot, because we had the 80s,
perfection.
Yeah. Well, because now again, and I, full marks to, Chris Evans and your The Rocks and Hugh Jackman. The guy's just a unit, but it's so like no human being could ever do that outside of like 1 or 2 days. And this level, like Thomas Jane seems like a guy who's very in shape, but not like a guy who just lives in the gym.
Yeah. However,
That's fair.
I will say, I think that the one that really started it, because it makes sense for a super soldier to be absurdly in shape.
Oh yeah,
It makes
and
sense
I
for a
adore
god to be
Chris
in
Evans
shape.
for
The
doing
one
it.
that the one that started it was Chris Pratt in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, he was in good shape.
That man went all out, and
Well-
he's the one who actually like cascaded to others. People kind of pointed to him, including Ben Affleck
Mhm.
and Ant-Man. What's his name? Paul Rudd.
Yeah. Paul Rudd
We're
talked
both
about. Yeah, you're like on the set with these guys, and they're like, you have to. You like, there's, like, you feel so much like you have to match them somewhat when you're stepping into their world. Yeah.
Here is the one of the 2 torture scenes in the film, and it's probably the funniest torture sequence you'll ever see in a movie. Taken directly out of a Punisher Punisher War Journal comic.
Small detail. I appreciate how sweaty he is. Like, it's just so like. I mean, they're in Florida. This makes sense. He's not meant to look pretty here,
He's also nervous. He's
being
tortured.
I know. I'm just saying, like, it's like funny but serious, and they hit that balance so well here.
Yeah.
But this isn't accurate, correct? Like, you would absolutely feel this. Like,
No.
he's not. Yeah.
You would absolutely feel it. But I'm not taking this guy as even a high school graduate. I mean, he looks like he's 40 and he's a low-level weed dealer for a mob boss in Florida. Yeah. This dude's not higher educated.
He's a very scary man. I do like that they establish, or it's a good scene to establish that he's definitely not above torturing somebody psychologically, but he's also not going to just kill everybody he runs into. Like he does have a code, even if it's kind of a, I'm not defending his code as being what people should have, but it does exist.
Yeah. And that's even present in the comics. He'll often give, like, depending on the type of criminal. Yay, boobs.
There you go, Pat. There's your radar.
He'll give criminals that he believes are the right enough, like low enough level type of thing, where they were just people kind of forced into it, didn't really have a choice or a chance, willing to give up. He'll let them go in most iterations. Some of them are more brutal than others.
Yeah. I love here too that Mickey actually eats this popsicle. Like, he doesn't just, like, he actually, if you go through the scene, he like finishes eating it.
He does?
He does. Like, watch him. Like, he like finishes it off while they're talking. You're not a nice person.
See, it's doing one of those, this movie's doing one of those things that actually annoys me at other times, where people are just kind of saying the quiet part out loud. He's a very scary man. You're not a nice person. But it works here. It's kind of believable.
Well, I think, and it's all about, to me, it's all about just delivery. And, this guy seems like the kind of guy who would say that out loud,
Yeah.
And the same thing with the neighbors, Ben Foster, when he's like, let's not, he's a very scary man. Like, it's like, it seems like people who, would be kind of talking about somebody might say.
Nice detail that I like, just in terms of storytelling and filmmaking. I like that as he's looking through these things, as he's being briefed on these people's lives, he's not just, we're not just being shown them. It's actually showing him observing. It's kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's the description of the son.
Yeah. Quentin Glass. What a last name, Glass.
What a name.
Mr. Glass. It's a good superhero movie.
They called me Mr. Glass.
It's an interesting way to introduce it. And this was 2004. The whole, it's a big deal that he's gay. it wasn't really a thing in culture at that point, but I wish they had fleshed that out a little bit better. But it's still, I could believe that a mob boss would not be okay with it.
I still think that they should have had a scene that more strongly established Howard Saint as like actively homophobic.
Yeah,
Because why would it be such a big deal to blackmail him over being gay?
yeah.
Because
No,
just like
I
a couple
agree.
years after this, you had Tropic Thunder, and this is Hollywood, son. Everybody's gay sometime. This is the only scene where you have even the hint of the relationship with the former partner, the black guy here.
Yeah, and like
the whole subplot.
And I know we've talked about this before, also, Zach. But it's a I do wish they had established a little bit more why. I mean, this is the only scene that addresses whatsoever why Frank Castle felt the need to do this on his own. That like the system had failed. That if he hadn't gone for justice himself, nothing would have ever happened. And I wish they had given that a little bit more plot meat.
Exactly. Like, instead we got a 3-minute car chase that wasn't even that good.
I mean, and I like this scene. I think his bit of dialogue here is actually really effective, and Thomas Jane delivers it well. But it's just that this is quite literally it. Like, you never is mentioned again. Law enforcement isn't even... I don't think law enforcement shows up one more time in the entire rest of this movie. I'm trying to think.
Yeah. I don't think so.
Here we get another great Western, definitely kind of Western scene. You got the trench coat with the whole, kind of go in and mess with the bad guy's money as a classic way to kind of
get his attention,
yes.
Call him out. Also, just classic Punisher wardrobe.
Yeah. I mean, Thomas Jane pulls off the trench coat very well. Oh, sorry. The forehead slammed into a metal railing just, makes me wince every time I see it in a movie, because I'm like, that would hurt so bad.
Yeah. Ding dong. Not having a good time on that one.
These guys just counting money, smoking cigarettes, eating their broth or whatever this guy's got. Some kind of, well, he's Italian, so it's sauce, right? Some kind of tomato sauce.
Yeah. He looks like the quintessential mobster.
That's a very classic sound effect there.
I love that sound effect. It's an absolute favorite of mine.
It's like the frying pan sound effect, right?
And that's the glory shot for the Punisher. Like, or one of like 4 shots that I always see of this movie.
Yeah. Well, that one, right when he's like facing off with the guys, and he kind of, the jacket's back just enough to show the t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
That's another good one.
Yeah, well, the ones that I see the most in reference to this, there's the scene where he stands up and does the turn with the flak jacket and the Punisher skull on it from the end, and then the scene with the bow. That was a really unique and interesting thing back then.
Yeah.
And people are just like, ooh, he fights with a bow.
So,
it was pre-Katniss days.
Yeah, there is one thing right there, though, that again, the whole I'm going to rack my shotgun to show I'm serious, which is code for, wait a minute, you weren't even ready to shoot until right then?
Or, I would put it more towards I'm willing to waste a round in order to be intimidating.
Well, that's the case. If they showed that, and they showed a cartridge go out, that would be fine, because then at least they would show, like, I'm just making a point here, psychologically.
Yeah.
But no round was ejected, meaning that his chamber was empty up until right then. I mean, it's the cliche, right? I mean, it's the most overdone gun cliche in all of film. But it bugs me. That right there, that shot.
Yeah, the overhead light.
Yeah.
And that's very much a Punisher line. That's something you could see him saying in any of the comics. In fact, that's one of my biggest issues with what's his face, Barenthal's Punisher, is he doesn't have the same dry wit. He's a little bit more like panicked berserker.
Yeah, weirdly enough, he plays it almost too, not straight, but
I would even say too emotional.
Yeah, that's a good way.
It's human.
The Punisher should be a weird balance between cold but also still kind of self-aware.
Yeah. Pat, you've played Dungeons and Dragons. I've always sat there and gone, the Punisher is a fighter. That's his class. He is 100% a
Yeah.
fighter.
He has a gun
Barenthal's
malfunction here, by the way.
Punisher. Yeah, he does. The Barenthal's Punisher is a berserker.
So right there, you can see his 1911 failed to because of the compensator. It's because you put the compensator on it.
I like that it's the one that he puts away.
Yeah.
There's something kind of real about that. Like, he can see that it malfunctioned.
Yeah. Still got the job.
And I wonder if that was just yeah. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Have you ever actually met anybody who has a TV setup like this?
No, I've only seen pictures of their places on Reddit. Half of those I assume are fake.
I've seen one. And even so, like, I feel like you would get such neck pain.
Yeah.
And I work with 4 monitors at my work. It's a little excessive, but I love it.
So I always wondered here, that Ben Foster's character there, he just said, what's CTU? Oh, the counterterrorism unit. I wonder if that was a nod to 24 was very popular at this point in television. And that was a fictional organization invented for 24. I wonder if they realized or didn't realize that it was like a 24 reference.
I very much believe that they were using Jack Bauer as a reference for this character, for this portrayal. And they wanted to kind of tie that in to, people have watched 24. They're going to know CTU. Let's have him be a CTU agent. Duh.
Yeah. It's just funny because I think I knew many people that thought that was a real organization that were fans of that show. I love that show. You thought that was real?
Well, I was ignorant and stupid.
That's right. You were still in high school.
Yeah. I stopped watching after season 6, but still.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a show that was amazing, but definitely ran its course.
Yeah, it went on way too long.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, definitely it kind of rewrote a little bit the anti-hero archetype with Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I could see this version of Frank Castle being partially inspired by Kiefer's betrayal.
Did you know that the Punisher helped coin a new term in terms of storytelling? A lot of people didn't like how common anti-hero was becoming as a label. With characters like Deadpool out there, and even Wolverine to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
And so they declared that this is this type of character, like Frank Castle, is not actually an anti-hero. He's an anti-villain. An anti-hero does the right thing, even if his motivations tend to be more selfish. Where an anti-villain, his motivations are, in theory, noble, but his methods are evil, like that of a villain. I don't necessarily hold to that, but still.
I mean, I can see there being a distinction there. Because the Punisher, it almost depends on when you're looking at him in the comics. That he could almost go back and forth between those two definitions.
Very much so.
Excuse me.
Very much so.
Something is in my throat.
There's so many things that I wish that we could do with the Punisher that we're never going to get. Like, there's a particularly legendary moment in the series, the massive event, I should call it, Civil War, on which Captain America Civil War, the film, is vaguely based. And it's a moment where the Punisher kind of declares for Captain America's side. And some villains also come forward, and they're like, Captain America, we're with you. We want to fight with you. And he's like, okay, well, can't take whoever we get as long as you're not too bad of a person. And Frank's just there, and he just steps behind him and just domes both of them. And Captain America goes ham on this guy, but the Punisher absolutely refuses to fight Captain America. He's fought other heroes. He's fought Spider-Man, he's fought Iron Man, several others. He refuses to fight Captain America because he believes Captain America is the moral paragon, and he'll never raise a fist against him.
That would have been a cool moment to have that on screen in some way. I love this scene, by the way.
Also because Captain America helped train Frank Castle.
Oh, I did not know that. This is a good scene, I feel like. It's just, it's a little bit of levity to it, but it also just is, again, part of, having the the side of Frank Castle that's like a good guy in a way.
I think it's a fantastic character moment through and through.
Yeah.
Because one, it makes Frank more willing to step into issues that aren't just his, which is important.
I love Thomas.
Also,
sorry, I just love his body language here, and just the way that he just acts. This is so like just like you are not a threat. I'm sorry, I totally interrupted you, but go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're totally right, because this is a hilarious scene. And again, it's just a pure character scene. You see her. She's panicked. She's scared. She has guy problems. She always chooses the stupid ones. You see him. He stepped out and actually kind of tried to help. He has a heart, but he doesn't have the method. He doesn't have the know-how. And then you see this guy being really supportive and really friendly.
He's the healer of the group.
Oh yeah,
he's the healer.
Uh-huh.
Well, he had that rolling pin ready to go, so you know.
Yeah. I love this scene.
Yeah.
It gives all four of these characters just through and through development.
Yeah. So
she's a very nice looking lady.
About to say, she's a very attractive woman. Wasn't her character in the comics not quite this good looking?
No, she was more of a... She looked like a punk who used drugs. Which is what she's supposed to be in here.
Yeah, this is a supermodel who, you know, has been make-upped up a little bit to look dirty.
Yeah.
I mean, and I get it. In the era, you know, you want she's the closest thing you get to a leading lady in this film, and you want her to be gorgeous. But, again, it doesn't quite fit who she's supposed to be.
No. Yeah, her character's like really short and has purple hair and some piercings and looks like a meth head who's been a victim of domestic violence, to put it bluntly. And they have implications in here that she has drug problems, but it doesn't spell it out enough to really make you go, oh, that's her deal, you know?
Yeah.
It's too subtle because they didn't want to be too pushy on it.
I always thought it was interesting, too. They're very deliberate about... Like, they must have had just a marketing deal with Wild Turkey, because they make such a point about that's the whiskey he drinks, which isn't,
right?
You know, not the best whiskey.
A tough man. It's not bottom shelf, but it's also not top shelf.
No. I feel like he'd be a Jack guy.
I could see that.
Which he in
maybe
in the Dirty Laundry short he did years later, Jack Daniels is very heavily shown as he beats a man to death with it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Love a good man beat to death scene.
Yeah. And then used to, you know, have his the woman he was abusing light him on fire.
Oh yeah, and I did watch that because you see when we were texting about this, you were like, you should watch Dirty Laundry. And at first I was like, no, I'm not going to watch Dirty Laundry just because you told me to. But for those who don't know, there was a back in the days when it was a little bit more common for like fan films to be like, oh wow, this is really cool and unique. They did a fan film for this movie starring Thomas Jane and actually what's that guy's name?
Ron Perlman.
Everything. Ron Perlman.
Yep.
Hellboy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Thomas Jane, he was the one who like pushed it. He like made it happen.
Oh yeah, he was like a producer.
Yeah, I think he paid for most of it. But yeah, just and he meant it to be a little bit of a proof of concept of what because he wanted to do a sequel, but he only wanted to do it if it could be, you know, the way he wanted it to be.
Yeah. Because the sequel to this was actually written, or not sequel. The follow-up to this was written as a sequel to this movie, but never came together, so they just made it into kind of a reboot under the Marvel Knights label, which is only used for 2 movies, which was Punisher Warzone and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance.
Oh, goodness.
Just fantastic movies.
Yeah, those are classics.
Legendary movies of quality.
That's like when a big studio launches another satellite office and they give a big title to that satellite office and they fumble the football.
Yeah.
Oh god, both of those movies. I want to get to Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance someday. Like that's one of my if something doesn't work out, I'm like, let's do this as Ghost Rider movies. Because, man, that second one especially is such a train wreck. I'll always remember some random scene where she's like, how did you survive this fall? And it just shows, Idris Elba hanging upside down from a tree with this, like, vague French national anthem music in the background for, like, 3 seconds, and then it cuts away back to a really serious scene. So bad. Anyway, I'm distracting from this.
No, that's right.
And
I mean, we do have
interesting plot going on.
Yeah, we have. I don't think it's executed perfectly, but I do appreciate. So let me back up for a second. One of my favorite books, and then I think the movie is fantastic. Also, is The Count of Monte Cristo, and just that whole. Frank Castle could have killed Howard Saint pretty easily. I don't think there's any question that if he had just wanted to go kill him, that wouldn't have been a hard thing for him to pull off. But he doesn't want to. It's the idea that I'm going to dismantle your life and I'm going to make you an unwilling participant in it. And it's that deep, like, angry vengeance versus just I'm just going to kill you. And I appreciate that they try to do that in this film. And there's definitely some good elements to it. I wish they had pulled it off a little bit better, but I still really enjoy the effort.
Yeah, because, like, this is not a crime of passion. This is first-degree murder.
Yeah, it's highly premeditated.
Mm-hmm.
And we got our...
What do you think of this guy here?
Well, he's our Johnny Cash impersonator.
He's a chump.
This is one of those characters that's very much like, this guy's right out of a Punisher comic. He always has some guy coming after him, okay? He always has some enforcer, some bounty hunter who's in one way or another he's semi-legendary, okay? Oh. And he's got a gimmick, he's got something weird and notable about him, like this guy and his guitar and his Johnny Cash-ishness and his weird way of holding a cigarette while he opens things.
It's a Gibson acoustic. That's a rare brand for an acoustic guitar.
Oh yeah, my dad has a Gibson. Acoustic.
Yeah, this guy, I can't imagine that this guy doesn't do Johnny Cash cover music, like, in his spare time.
Oh yeah, I honestly think that it's a crime that no Punisher has properly used Johnny Cash's When the Man Comes Around.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Maybe they even wanted to and couldn't get the rights, and so they had this thing.
Maybe. And this is actually a pretty cool. I mean, so I had the soundtrack on CD of this, and I bought it for this song. Actually, I liked
What's
this song.
What's a CD?
I know. So I watched quick thing. I watched a painful video of a bunch of high schoolers trying to use Windows 98 and just seeing how they did. And one of them was like launching a program, and they were handed a CD, and it probably only took them 10, 15 seconds, but it seemed like an eternity. They couldn't figure out how to open the jewel case. I was just like, this is painful.
I thought you were going to say they didn't know how to open the slide, and I'm like,
no. They just
jewel case.
Well, they didn't understand you had to pinch the top and the bottom. It's just instinct for us. It was oh man, it's been a while. It's been a minute.
Even I'm a little old.
Harry Heck.
Which again, this is very classic Punisher. To have a guy like this, a weird little name, he's going to come after him. They set up a little rivalry, and like all other Punisher villains, he pretty much only has one appearance.
Yeah. There is some confidence there, though, to let the guy know before you.
One of the things that the next movie does.
What's a GTO?
It's GTO. Oh, I love this, because this feels dangerous. The car coming up behind you, just... If you've ever been rear-ended, you know this feeling. It's the worst.
But it is the best thing. Go ahead.
Warzone takes some actual comic book characters and brings them in, even like one-off characters who were only in one short series or one graphic novel. Actual comic characters, where this one just makes up their own, which I can respect, but it's he has so many that he could pull from. There's one that's particularly legendary called Barracuda. It's this disgusting comic book, but Barracuda's this bad guy. He's this enforcer. Ugh, that's just a Darwin Award right there. Girl running out into traffic.
Well, talk about
But, like-
bad timing.
Mhm. Terry Crews could play Barracuda if Terry Crews was capable of being evil.
Mm-mm. Yeah, even when he tries, it just doesn't really pull it off. I do like this. I always liked the knife. I thought it was clever in a cool way.
Oh, me too. And I apologize if you guys hear my cats fighting. Like, this is when you would monologue. I'm like, I got a shotgun. He's got a knife. Man, Thomas Jane is pale.
Yeah, he does. He spends a lot of time indoors. Although, right there, the green car didn't have its damage anymore. Like its whole front right fender had been crunched up really good, and in that wide
my
shot,
goodness.
it was gone.
Okay.
Here's your claymore.
Yeah, but do you think this is a secondary explosive? Because this is not a claymore
No,
explosion.
well, I mean, the fuel tank of this boat probably.
I don't even know if a claymore would set that off. You know?
Oh, it would. I mean, there's still 2 pounds of C4 in a claymore. Oh, I'm sorry,
pounds? I thought it was half a pound.
not 2 pounds, half a pound. Half pound of C4 on a fiberglass boat.
Yeah, I suppose you're right.
Especially if when he dropped it, it landed pointing down. You know, so the force of the explosion went straight down.
I wonder if it's like buttered toast or cats, where it always lands buttered side down, and cats always
Well,
land on their feet.
One side of a claymore is
Grunt
definitely
always
heavier.
lands down.
Well, I mean, it's definitely heavier.
That-
so that
yeah,
makes sense. There you go. There's your other scene.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I just mean that's one of the other like poster shots right there of just him standing there.
Yeah. He's very scary.
Now, this is the one scene where I feel like John Travolta actually acts like appropriately for the situation.
Yeah. This part, I don't know. There's a couple of other scenes with Howard where they could just get rid of him and it wouldn't miss anything. This is actually one that I like and I think is good for the character and his like unraveling and his, what's the word I'm looking for? Desperation.
Yeah. This is a good piece of, I mean, these brothers, these like Cuban brothers or whatever, this is the one scene too where they do seem like possibly they could be dangerous also.
Yeah. The line about the cigar kind of makes me laugh. Because that would be like a status symbol, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Are Cuban cigars legal again? I know that
I think they might be after
somebody
last.
was trying to get that embargo lifted.
Maybe? That sounds like something that might be true, but I have no idea.
That Make Castle Dead line was in like every trailer. Make Castle Dead.
I'm eating
What's
sardines
the name of
with a switchblade in the dark with my
Well,
shirt
sardines
off.
are high in protein, so he's keeping his energy level up. So that's good.
it? There you go.
Maybe it's post-workout.
It is.
I
Yeah,
was going to say, because high in protein, that's not energy. That's building blocks. You need carbs for energy. I'm just being pedantic.
Yeah, that's right. I appreciate there's a detail here. Yeah, when he kind of he agrees to go, and the film part of me just likes that he puts on a white T-shirt here. It's the only time he wears white after his family dies in the entire film.
Yeah.
And I think there was a little bit of symbolism there of just he's not going out to do something bad. He's actually going to try to be, you know. Anyways, it's a tiny detail I like.
How do you feel about this whole thing? The kind of tricky setup and
I think
all
that
that.
it is something that her character and the cook, the larger fella,
Bumbo.
it does seem like something that their kind of people would do. The whole give thanks though is I mean it's
Cringy.
a little cringy, yeah. I think that they could have just had it just be dinner and call it good.
If she was making, if they had made her kind of like she was in the comics, where she is a little bit more of like, you could tell she's actively falling apart as a human being, instead of just being the supermodel who chooses bad men, then I think that it would sell it a little bit more, because you would have it like these are people who genuinely don't know how to communicate and are trying to get something out of this guy and are trying to influence him as clumsily as possible. But she's like too smart and too pretty. And my cat is trying to pull down a Christmas tree. Oh, Lord.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. We meant to set ours up this weekend. Did not get around to it. Yeah.
I want to know who gave that guy her number. I mean, come on, girl. Oh my gosh, I'm drinking a Diet Pepsi. Mostly because they were out of Pepsi Zero and Coke Zero, and I'm sad.
Aw. I do like his little, like, he chooses to be nice without actually giving anything away.
Yeah.
You know? He's like, I'm not going to give you anything, but I'm also going to be polite.
This is the last breath, kind of, before the end. Like, everything happens at breakneck speed from here on out. Not necessarily in terms of pacing. Like, they have some slower moments, but in terms of the narrative, everything's 0 to 100 from here on out.
Yeah. Well, and I do enjoy, you were talking about editing earlier, and I do agree a lot of this movie isn't edited super well, but I do think that they did a good job of kind of luring you into a just a sense of like, oh, I can breathe here. This is gonna be a nice moment. And the first time I saw this, I didn't expect the Russian to appear in the middle of all this, because I was taken in by, okay, you know, we're gonna have a peaceful moment. We're gonna have some character stuff here and give him, you know, some time to, you know, connect to see human beings again, and he does get that here. But then they bring the Russian in, and it is a really well done, just unexpected move, I feel like.
Oh, such a great moment. Did you think that they were going to make some sort of romantic thing here?
I think they wanted to, and I think that if,
did.
yeah, I think that if they have if they had continued Thomas Jane's Punisher, I think they would have definitely revisited this.
Yeah, well, like, I don't mind the idea of the Punisher getting a love interest, but kind of like the Punisher TV series with Barenthal, right? Like, you're not giving him a love interest so soon after the death of his wife.
True.
You know, they waited until the second season to give him something even close to it, and it was more like just a one-night stand that he had good chemistry with.
Yeah. I appreciate
the Punisher does not have love interests.
No, I appreciate he walked away. Like, his response there was good. And like I said, yeah, just like what you said, it's too close to his wife's death. If this had gone on and had a couple movies and we'd gotten further away, yeah. It's something.
Yeah, if they'd made a trilogy, I'd be like, you know, the third one, maybe tempt him with a life away from all of this, or even give him a life away from all of this,
or even the idea of just like finding comfort with a woman without getting into like a full-blown relationship with them. This is, though, and I know you love this scene also, because this happening in the background when the Russian shows up is just fantastic. Just the back and forth. This is one of the best action scenes in any comic book movie, in my opinion. Because first time I watched this, I did not expect.
I love this.
He's like, it makes sense why he'd put the gun away, because he doesn't want to scare the nice, fragile people.
Yeah.
And instead, it's the wrestler.
And I love the fact that there was no, like, even moment there. He just hit him immediately when the door opened, which is what you do if you wanted to actually get the surprise.
Now, Pat, I don't know anything about...
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know anything about wrestling, so tell us about this guy.
Yeah, I don't know anything either.
His name is Kevin Nash. He's been in WWF, WCW. At this point, he was retired. Um, but still obviously in shape, still a bodybuilder. I want to say he's like 6'11", like he's decently tall. He's like in, um, and yeah,
Oh man.
his yeah.
Oh, it
Oh
hurts.
man.
I just want to enjoy the fight.
Yeah. So I mean,
Well,
one of the fun.
Brian, why don't you tell us about that
Oh
stab
yeah, I'm
wound
gonna
there?
say that's one of my favorite pieces of trivia about this movie is that Kevin Nash. It was still a prop knife, not a full-on knife, but Thomas Jane did in fact stab Kevin Nash with a prop knife that didn't completely like spring back in, and but he just like a trooper just kept acting through it, and that is the take in the movie. He's actually gotten stabbed.
That's
And
awesome.
apparently Thomas Jane
Yeah.
really, I mean, obviously felt horrible about it. And the way he said in a few interviews is he sent him a lot of beer as a I'm sorry.
Yeah. Kevin Nash apparently also appeared in the first John Wick movie. He was a bouncer that John Wick threatens, and he's just like, "Hey, John, you working again?" and lets him live.
Yeah, he's been in a couple other films, I think, as well. I don't remember them too well.
Oh, this grenade, man. I was watching this with my wife, like I said, and when he hits the grenade back through the window, she was like,
I loved
"It's
the
so funny."
I love the
It's a
little
great twist.
smile that he had there. Like when he watches the explosion, then he has this little grin. And it's a fantastic. I mean, he has no
I
dialogue.
love that he just lifts the friggin' toilet off the ground, dude.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh, man. It's well he plays this so well. His facial expressions are so great throughout it. Obviously his physicality is just, very present.
Somebody
Yeah,
watch
Kevin
Christina
Nash was
Ariel.
also in The Longest Yard, the Adam Sandler version. He was one of the
Okay.
prison guards. He was actually the prison guard that Adam Sandler got to take estrogen pills.
Oh,
And so then
goodness.
he's like, "Can everyone get along?"
Oh gosh.
So seeing that
So-
big, huge guy do that was pretty funny.
The character of the Russian was in one of the few recurring Punisher villains, and one of the things was that the Punisher cuts his head off. Oh, such a good
I
scene.
just
That's a
love
great-
the look
Dumbbell.
when he breaks the revolver. He looks so sad, and then he just gets thrown right through the wall.
I also have to say that must have been one heck of a table to take a hit strong enough to bend the barrel, but the table is completely intact underneath it. So
Right? Great little ending here, though.
oh yeah. Well, the fact
But
that
yeah,
the music cut off too, because the music's been such a big part of this whole sequence, and it goes dead quiet here.
Mhm.
Very effective.
And it makes it a little bit more brutal
Oh yeah.
and horrible. But the Russian, like at one point he gets his head cut off, and then the head gets reattached to a new body, and he comes back, but he's on like a super soldier serum that's not quite right, and the character grows like giant breasts and has to pretend to be a woman to get around. And it's like weird comics. Really weird.
I love that they're just standing there. That's so great.
This is a really good
Honest-
prosthetic here at the bottom of the stairs, by the way, because
yeah, really
it-
good.
it looks good. Like we watched, I
I'm a-
don't know, it's been a few months at this point, but the first Alien movie and the prosthetic of
Ash.
which was not great. This is a good one.
Very.
He said, "I'm fine." He's not, and then
It
falls
just falls
over.
over. And again, I like that for this Frank Castle has a few of those moments. I mean, as much as he's a brutal character in a grounded movie, I'm glad that he has those tiny little kind of comic book moments. Those bits of dialogue that are just fitting of
Mhm.
he's still a comic book character. You
Yeah.
you can have a moment of fun or two. Not going to ruin your movie.
It's like, I know what he wants. Them observing the damage is also really funny.
Ben Foster back there. I got his whiskey. Just oh goodness.
Yeah. And you see, this is this line from her here with sewing him up. I thought that it was about her being a seamstress because she had that sewing machine, but apparently it's supposed to be about like her past as a heroin addict. And I'm like,
How does
I
that give
didn't
you
pick
sewing
that up.
skills?
It doesn't. She says she's good with a needle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's I appreciate not that the whiskey wouldn't have done anything, but that she poured hydrogen peroxide instead of just dumping whiskey in his open wound.
Yeah. Whiskey can lead to infections. Like if you don't have anything else, do what you gotta. But
There's other things in it besides alcohol.
yeah, it can complicate things.
There's a reason why if you
Appearances aren't everything.
It's great.
Is he gonna die? So good.
Oh, it's funny.
Oh snap!
Yeah. What if these guys
And
drive around in a Lincoln Continental? It's like, okay.
what's wrong with the Lincoln Continental?
It's just, again, it's so, I mean, it fits them, just generic black suits,
Mm-hmm. But again, like this coming scene here is the death of one of these henchmen who was shown doing deplorable things and has been present throughout the whole movie, but you wouldn't even know it. Drives me crazy. Absolutely bat crap.
I do also feel like, well, I mean, they're being somewhat cautious, but if the Russian was dead at the bottom of the stairs and they know how dangerous he is, I feel like they would have come up a little more cautiously, thinking that
Yeah,
he just killed, like, this guy.
and that's a big dude.
Oh, there's Pretty Boy. Pretty Boy's gonna get angry.
Here's your favorite scene in the movie, Zach.
No, this is what I was talking about. This is
Oh
a
yeah,
brutal torture sequence.
And I think this is also Will Patton's best just example of his acting in the film, that he is so, I mean, he gives me the shivers in this scene.
Well, this is one of those scenes. I shouldn't say another one. This is one of those scenes where the director just kind of let the actors have free reign, and Ben Foster and Patton here, Will Patton, whatever his name is,
Will Patton.
were allowed to improvise. And so a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the way that everything's phrased here when it comes to the piercings and the torture and all that stuff is improvised by the actors. Which, respect, man.
Yeah.
Because just, oh, man. Again, watching this with my wife, because I remember watching this with some friends of mine years ago, and you just realize, oh, man, I think I might have had shitty friends. They were just like, oh,
no,
it's so cool,
No, this is awful.
So cool.
Two different opinions. I like it as a character moment, I should say.
Oh yeah, it's good, like, filmmaking. It's good character development. It's a very effective scene. I just don't enjoy watching it at all.
Yeah. I would describe it as
I
cool.
I don't have any piercings, and that still, like, just makes me go like, okay.
Oof.
There are things shrinking a little bit right now,
Yeah. I've had to help my wife put piercings back in after they've like had to be taken out for an MRI or stuff like that, and some of the holes just heal really, really fast on her, and it can be kind of a painful process to get them in or out. And just even slight tugging on even healed ones can be really uncomfortable, really painful. So to have it like this, ooh, baby, it's that's gonna be a no from me, Bob. What, like you wouldn't know what a piercing is? Come on, man, you're gay. I'm sorry, was that insensitive?
Again, just like Will Patton here is just, oh. I mean, just the way that he's looked at him, just like, you like it a little bit when it hurts, kind of stuff like that, and just like he's so cold, but in a very menacing way.
Yeah, very. Little, very psychologically torturous.
Oh yeah.
And that's why you can tell that there's something special about this movie, you know?
Oh yeah.
This isn't gross for the sake of being gross. This is gross for the sake of being terrifying and showing these characters. Like, this guy, people do not stand up to torture. Like, pretty much ever. That's one of those things that special forces people learn, where they just, like, no matter what, everybody breaks.
Yeah, it's a matter of when.
Well, and you would
It's
think
not.
this guy would instantly sing too.
But I
So
also get
that also shows that it's a good character thing, and
Yeah.
this might be a character who's used to pain, you know?
well, and just the idea that they really did form a bond this much of just like not necessarily with Frank Castle specifically, but just the idea of like we've got to protect our own kind of a thing, and they've identified Frank as one of their own.
Yeah. Frank didn't really meld with them. They just kind of imprinted on him, you know?
Yeah. Oh man.
Just
Yeah, you're right.
The
I
lack
mean,
of music, it's so hard to watch, you know?
yeah, it's a very effective scene, and yeah. I do appreciate though that they kept it going long enough to make their point in its fullness, but didn't like then they're done, and you didn't need more as more than what they gave you would have gone from effective to sadistic.
Yeah. But not
Agreed.
just like, oh, the character's sadistic, but it's sadistic towards the audience.
Well, and we can
Yeah.
fill in the blanks without them showing to us.
Yeah.
You know, it's like in a sex scene, like you can show them starting to get undressed and we know what's happening. You don't have to spell it out.
Yeah.
Tell that to Game of Thrones, would you?
I do enjoy the whole like Russians dead, castles alive. You don't need to say anything else. Just like
Yeah. She's like, oh yeah, this whole thing's going on. And I'm just not going to tell you that we're in any type of danger. You just continue doing your own thing.
it's interesting too because like right there they show her as being so just kind of like bouncy and light and like it's weird because we've had the scene of her in the car at the funeral saying the whole family kill them, and then it's like just this I'm going to the movies, and it's just this the actress. I'm not saying that she's good,
She was mourning the death of her
Yeah.
son, okay?
but she
By ordering mass murder.
yeah, but she was effective. This I love, by the way. This goes. What was that movie? The Faculty, that where they. I think Josh Hartnett was in that, and he grabbed like a paper cutter, like slicer, and was taking out like alien infested teachers or something.
I want to say that was a weapon you could pick up in like a Dead Rising zombie game. And
I
so
have not seen
like
The Faculty, and I have not played Dead Rising, so I believe you guys.
Ah,
Yeah,
oh
like
man,
memorable death, right?
yeah,
But yeah, this is one of those guys, right? He was at the beginning. He was
Mm.
there. He shot a bunch of kids, and it's just like should have been more memorable, you know?
Poor guy, man. Good for
Man.
him.
Yeah. Well done, sir.
oh, I love the music here too. It's like this soft music that comes in all of a sudden, and just it's effective that he's experiencing something here that he did not expect.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's a good way to put it. I never thought of it that way.
Although we
It's
do,
a family.
yeah, stand him up. All right. Yeah, it's all effective.
That guy's name is Bumpo. Jeez.
Yeah.
It's like when they named the big guy in Star Wars that gets blown up Porkins. It's like, come on, guys.
Oh,
Can't you
do you
call
think
him
that was
Slim or something?
you think that was George himself that named him Porkins?
I hope so. I hope so.
Oh, I mean, yeah, man, he keeping the blood on his face and the shirt. I think this Thomas Jane looks dangerous out here all of a sudden. Just, I mean, not that he hasn't been up to this point,
Yeah.
but it's effective.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, like just that shot right there of his face, the
Yeah.
way that the light is being lit. It's a very effective, like, just shot. I hate that gun so much, by the way.
Oh yeah, the Glock with the. It's also a two-tone Glock, which I'm just not a fan of.
Yeah, it's a douchey gun in my opinion.
Yeah, but
he never uses it in the actual.
Makes no sense.
I mean, the fact he never uses it again. I usually like the stainless slide versions of guns. I just find them almost all like they're either like very Laura Croft, like, you know, kind of a girl, or like a bad guy.
Sic vis pacem parabellum. I do like this speech, but it kind of implies that he's writing stuff down, right? And this is a monologue from the Punisher War Journal comics. But there's also this slight feeling to it because, like, there's a gap in the explanation or a gap in the narration that's huge. It's like a 6-minute gap before it picks up again. Strange choice to me.
I also wonder if she's continuing just to carry around these earrings like in the case in her purse, like for days apparently. Like she didn't like put them away, or I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like she'd be the type who would have maybe like a larger stash.
Yeah, I mean, I found things at the bottom of my wife's purse, and I'm just like, man, how long ago did you put this in here? So maybe it's that.
Gotta dig into the substrate.
Sometimes it's like, when was the last time you went to the bottom of this thing? Oh man.
But again,
I was reading the back
wish
of
they
that
would have
painting all of a
established
sudden. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh
was
yeah,
that?
you know, actually I noticed that too. I just wish that they'd established why he's so scared of being outed.
Yeah.
Like, he's a big tough guy with power.
Yeah, who cares?
Like, there's got to be something to establish that the character of Howard Saint is like a true nasty, like, homophobe in some way. Everything is kind of contingent on him asking where it was gotten.
Yeah, because if he just said take care of it and dismissed him, then what would you have like found a way to bring it up
It's
again?
from the Wyndham. This. I found this normally when she's at the movies. Does his laundry. Come on, man. Have a little confidence in yourself.
It's
That's a
interesting that
Fantastic Four house. I'm just kidding.
it's funny is it's got you're right there. Oh, that's actually an A, not a 4, so it's the Avengers house.
No, there we go. It was 40. It just was stylized. I didn't see the zero next to it.
Yeah, it's it, you know, for this guy, this the tracksuit guy, he definitely has a lot of access to this family. You know what I mean? Like, just
Oh yeah.
although I mean, you know, that is one of the Achilles heels, and there's a few different stories I've read where kind of, you know, like the help, kind of the unseen people are the Mass Effect 2. That's what I was thinking of. There's a whole sequence in there where Thane is talking about the unseen, the kind of parts of society that nobody even notices, but actually know so much, but just nobody notices them. And he'd probably fall into that category a little bit.
Oh, very much so. This guy seems to me like a really pathetic Alfred for the bad guys.
Oh, goodness. Tracksuit Alfred.
Tracksuit Alfred.
Also, very contingent on him finding this earring.
That's one of those things that if I was writing this into a novel, okay, you would have it so that he knows the way that Saint operates. He's able to break it down a little bit more. And it's just like, if I put it here, this is the type of place he's going to check. You know? That type of thing.
We do the very...
Also, does Quentin just live on like a granny flat?
I do think that they went a little cliche here on the whole thunder and lightning kind of coming through the windows, and I mean it is Florida, so the kind of weather obviously is very common, but
And I kind of hate it because in no other sequence is there thunder and lightning outside. Like,
Oh, that
I get
furniture,
it. It's
heck
Florida.
easy. I got questions.
it's really light furniture.
Right?
The whole you have too
Feel
much
like
you have too much furniture line. I actually kind of like that line.
I do too, but if you notice, like, there's a weird pause in it to the point of where I wonder if there was an F word that they cut.
I mean, they did
I
tone down the R rating on this movie a lot. You can tell.
well, the torture sequence, and like some of the blood and gore really pushed the censors, so they had to turn certain things down. Yeah.
I do like the idea here that he's so loyal that he just can't, just can't imagine. Like he's just so kind of, uh, it's just kind of hit sideways by this whole thing.
Yeah.
Also, really good acting again by Will Patton. Just
Yeah, like it's almost too good for this movie. It's good enough that it feels so out of place in this movie. Like the type of dialogue and everything they use here.
why are you killing me? It's just yeah.
R.I.P. You creepy sadistic bastard.
Yeah. Ugh.
Like,
Dang, you did.
it's like the right type of death for the character, but I wish he'd gotten more. Wish he'd gotten it worse. Justice for Dave.
Yeah.
Also, in the comics, the character of Dave was never just Dave. He was called Spacker Dave. And he was always referred to as Specker Dave. And it was really weird. So you had Specker Dave, Bumbo, and whatever the heck the lady's name was. Is there now?
Is that like these are like the only F words in the whole movie, aren't they?
Oh no, they've used a couple of others.
I'm supposed to have missed them.
There's something like 6.
I know, but it's
I
just
think.
again, it does just seem so. I mean, maybe they just we're still trying to. Yeah, again, it's a weird mixture of a movie that like 80% of it wants to be PG-13, and then it decides to go hard R like once or twice, and it's like, all right. I just wish
Well,
that the tone felt more consistent on the rating.
Yeah. Well, they wanted it to be, or some people wanted it to be PG-13. The director and Thomas Jane and all them were like, no.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure
We're not
the
doing
studio, wanted it to be.
Thank you, studio. Couldn't think
Yeah,
of that word. The executives.
Look,
He's just like, I got what I wanted. You guys gonna die.
yeah. Oh man.
Okay, coming up here. Okay, the
Okay.
Scream. The
Oh,
Scream.
yeah.
Did you ever play the video game Star Trek Elite Force?
Many times, yes.
There was a
I did not.
holodeck character that you could
Yeah,
have
in
on
the
there.
in the expansion,
Awesome
you could
Star
play
Trek.
the Captain Proton, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had a little button that you could press that would make the characters say stuff. And hers was just a blood curdling scream, and it is like the bland scream. It is the basic scream from like everything. And they use it in here. Like it's like a free asset you could find online as far back as 1998.
But it's
they use
not
it
as
for this
memorable as the Wilhelm
grand
scream.
moment. No. It's the women's Wilhelm scream,
Is it really? Okay.
in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Wilhelm's scream is so distinct.
Yeah.
I love the look on her face.
But-
She's like confused right here, just like, you know, like this is the best acting this actress did this whole sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Because
And it was
it's
a
not her
stunt
fault they
person.
use that scream, you know?
So, oh man, but I like that she's not like dead. You know, the fall didn't kill her. A lesser movie would have done that.
Train will, though.
Oh yeah.
Oh, man. That'd be a mess.
Yep. That would be a bad time to be that driver.
What a cool bank.
Man. Yeah, if you're gonna commit suicide, not that I ever recommend that, don't do it to a train. That really messes up the guys.
Yeah.
$50,000 apiece. $100,000 bounty. This is a Punisher scene. This is straight out of a Punisher comic. It's the
Yeah.
exact type you would expect to see.
Yeah. I kind of hate the little puns here, though. The little, you know, he's wrapped up in something. She took the train. It's like, I don't know. Maybe just the delivery. It's just,
Yeah.
like, I get that John Travolta was trying to deliver it really well. And then here we get back to the manifesto all of a sudden. Like, you almost forgot it was going on.
Like I said, 6 minutes. Yes, yes.
This is a good gear up scene, though, I gotta say. I enjoy a good gear up scene.
Same. Same. I do too.
I also approve of his choice of weapons for the most part. I mean, the sawed-off double-barrel shotgun's an interesting backup, but I mean, it's all right. I appreciate that he's wearing. He's not over the top. It's not. It's like it's comic booky that he's got a lot of guns, but it's not like, you know, commando level.
Oh my god! Right.
And I do have a soft spot for the whole the one thigh holster and the one kind of scout style, you know, on the back for his two 1911s.
No, it's a good setup.
Oh yeah, and I love that this movie goes with an actual silent weapon, the bow, versus a movie silencer, which is so unrealistic. It's insane. Like, yeah.
Like otherwise, they'd have to like sit there and explain. Oh, I'm using subsonic 22 rounds.
Yeah, there's a way you can make guns that quiet, but most movie silencers are garbage.
Oh my god!
Even in movies that I love, yeah, even in movies I like, they're still bad. Oh yes, the anti-personnel mine that looks like a it's like a plastic box you get from Radio Shack.
Well,
Yeah, it looks like a kitchen timer.
This shot though, this where he goes up here, is it this scene right here?
Yeah.
That shot right there.
That's the scene.
That's a good shot.
But I have looked online, and I do not believe that those anti-personnel mines actually exist.
I don't think they do.
And they're certainly not 8 pounds. Later in the movie, he describes them as weighing 8 pounds, and it's like hell they do.
Yeah.
Maybe 8 ounces.
Yeah, 8 pounds is unless they're made out of like straight lead or something. It's just no way.
Yeah. But this is a really good gun. It's a very basic M4 underbarrel grenade launcher.
Yeah. Well, especially from the
ACOG.
era. And it's not
I think it's an ACOG.
Well, it might be
It's
it's just a red dot. It's a non-magnified red dot he's using, which in this scenario you wouldn't want magnification. You'd want just a straight, just a reflex sight.
I've never used an ACOG, so outside of like Call of Duty, so I have no expertise on that.
But it's a realistic setup, especially for a soldier of this era.
Mm-hmm. And I like that a lot.
Yeah, I do love that the guy has just enough of a moment of recognition to be like, "Oh crap."
Like, SpaghettiOs.
I also appreciate the fact that he's firing in bursts, which is nice.
Yeah, short controlled bursts, no like crazy flamboyance to it.
And he doesn't fire 100 rounds out of this thing before it goes out of commission.
Yeah. I do kind of wish he was wearing the magazine vest.
Yeah.
You know?
Or at least had a few more mags, like on a battle belt kind of a thing. I appreciate the combat reload. That's realistic.
Good combat reload.
Yep.
So we've seen him get hit in the flat vest now about 3 times with small arms. We see here, yeah. So there's another one, and I like the way that he took that hit because that was looked like a 9mm, maybe a 45.
Oh. If you had a level 4 plate, you could take that shot, but man, it would still hurt.
Oh yeah. But that's one of the things about the Punisher, is that even when he's hurt, he just keeps going.
Yeah.
He doesn't stop. But I actually went and looked up and researched videos of, like, what type of plate can stop a shotgun?
Oh, that's amazing.
Well, this is the guy that killed his dad. This is the guy that killed his dad.
And this is the guy that killed his dad.
A knife through the mouth, through the chin.
Well, and I love the detail that
good.
The fabric of his chest, of his vest, is gone, and you can see the plate, which is at least, like, that's realistic.
Yeah.
Like you said,
but level 4 could take that level of shotguns.
Yeah.
But not well.
Yeah, I mean, you would be... But again, it's a very comic accurate thing that the Punisher, like you said, can just take pain.
Yeah, that's his superpower, is endurance. He's got a little bit of a limp here. Yeah. I like the shoulder pads, which is rare. I'm not usually a shoulder pad guy.
Appreciate the casual pop here. I also like this kill. Just I'm not just going to kill you. I'm going to have a tiny bit of fun with you in the middle of this intense situation. I'm going to take a moment to take pleasure in this this death.
And if this guy had any wherewithal to himself at all, if he wasn't so stinking selfish, and have self-preservation, then the best thing that this guy could do is actually set it off immediately in order to kill Castle.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just said it weighs 8 pounds, and he's carried how many of these things around?
Yeah, there's no way that thing's 8 pounds. Although, I'll tell you, if you're injured, even if it was just a pound, in that position, you still would only last a little bit.
That's what I mean, though. I think that it was supposed to be 8 ounces. Like, genuinely.
Yeah.
I could see that being like a pound and a half. This
silhouette here,
but not 8.
Man, I will say that this is where, again, Thomas Jane, like, this silhouette walking up is so good. Just like, yeah, I am. Yeah. I'm not a man anymore. I'm literally like a force of nature at this point.
Yeah.
I mean,
both of them. I love that. So good.
Yeah.
And again, we get a very West. I mean, this is, again, it's so Western. In a way, this feels a little bit like what they did with the most recent Batman. Because that movie has very much Western inspirations for some of its sequences too. He full on has a spur sound effect when he walks. That Batman.
He does. Oh my god, I never noticed that.
Oh yeah, he absolutely does. It sounds like, oh man, I love the music here. Just, I was funny. This is. Go ahead.
I love this. No, I just that he lets him know he made him kill his best friend and wife.
This is where I love all of this, and then I hate the last little bit, the whole skull explosion thing. I kind of.
Oh, dude, yeah.
I don't like it, but this is great.
It's kind of like, what was the movie? Daredevil and The Crow. They did that type of stuff.
Yeah, the fire symbol.
Mm-hmm. It didn't quite feel right here.
You know what? In their defense, I mean, this is before all the new Marvel. I feel like if this exact movie came out now, it would be so different.
Oh yeah.
From this, and right. I don't know that they would do the campy Punisher signal.
Yeah.
Because like back in the day, like this is so much like The Crow. If you think about it, this movie, right, came back from the dead and revenge on the guys that killed him and his family. Like it's literally The Crow with without a supernatural aspect.
I never thought about it that way. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I
And
actually
so the
only
fact that
recently
they,
saw the.
yeah,
See? I only recently saw The Crow for the first time a couple months ago, and I was actually impressed. It was a very good movie. I like that they
yeah,
used a real actor, not for that part, that was a dummy, but a real actor for the dragon being dragged and lit on fire. You could like see the padding and everything on the suit.
Yeah. Yeah, not the biggest fan of that. Now I know we have different opinions on the end of this, Zach. I love the last shot on the bridge, but you're not as big of a fan
I
of it,
like
right?
the shot. I don't like the narration and the kind of like declaration of who I am. It's just like I even when I was a kid, I didn't like it in Spider-Man. Who am I?
Mm.
I'm Spider-Man. Type
Yeah.
of thing. I I get like PTSD back to freaking Aquaman, which is like a great bad movie or a bad great movie, whichever way you want to look at it. I love it, and it's like a guilty pleasure, but it's also good. But the worst part of it are the opening and closing narrations and this kind of "Who am I? I'm Aquaman,"
Mm.
and it's like I hate it. I hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. And this is another one of those things. Going back to 2002 Spider-Man, going back to forward to 2018 Aquaman and others like it, where they kind of like have to declare who they are because
Yeah.
now they're this urban legend hero person and they've got a name and now they're taking ownership of it and going on their mission.
Yeah.
would you feel the same way? Do you feel the same way about the first Iron Man, when
No,
he's doing the press conference and he's
that's
like,
actually part of the plot though. Like that very much
Yeah,
ties
that
into
like that
good.
fits so well because it's an actual event happening. If they
okay,
had like implied that this is a letter that he's writing, but it's not. It's just a voiceover.
oh yeah, he's finishing the letter he wrote.
To who?
No, but he had already written the letter
Wasn't he
before he
doing
was
that
going after Howard
manifesto?
Saint. He was going after Howard
But
Saint. That's when he wrote the
did
letter.
he finish did he ever finish the letter? I think this is the finish of the letter.
Brian, what do you think?
I think that
Because that changes things.
no, I mean if I think if they had like I think that if they had kept his old partner in the plot a little bit more, and it was like something he was sending to him or like somebody else
Yeah,
who knew him, I think it would have
I
been
could see
it
that.
would have been more effective. But because it's kind of
Yeah.
just a voiceover, kind of a cool bit of narration, and they don't ever take it further than that, I think it's less effective. I mean, I still like a lot of it, but I wish they had made it like made a connection to the old world that he's kind of leaving behind, and somebody who still was alive that somehow is tied to that. Maybe.
Okay, I can see that. But yeah, I like the shot. The
Yeah.
shot's fantastic.
Yeah. I do like the little
Right,
detail
there you
leaving them money and the whole little kind of that they give these characters just one last little kind of like, oh, see he has like one last act of kindness after killing a whole bunch of dudes.
Right? Yeah, I like that they're using an actor who feels like genuinely fat,
Yeah.
Sometimes it can feel like really fake. I know that might be kind of weird or mean to say, but it's still just one of the things I'm like, I like this guy.
Yeah.
He feels like so fun and genuine.
Well, and he's also like he's not fat. Like he comes across fat and like, no offense, like very like incapable of defending himself.
Yeah, a little helpless.
You know what I mean?
I also enjoy in
Yeah.
this shot they bring back the trench coat for this last shot.
Yeah.
I love Thomas Jane's voice.
Yeah, it's a pretty
Yeah.
good voice.
I'd be curious how good he would do reading an audiobook.
The Punisher.
There we go. Yeah, it's this. I really do enjoy this film. It's like we've said a few times, it's definitely got issues, which we talked about. But this to me is like we Deadpool and Wolverine came out this summer, and definitely had a bunch of nods and kind of it was a mini love letter to kind of this era of Marvel. The kind of when did Blade come out? Like 97?
1998.
98. So like 98 to like what 2007, kind of that era of Marvel. 2008, like right before Iron Man, and there's some bad movies in there, but there was some.
They went all the way into Days of Future Past and everything, so more like 2013.
I genuinely forget sometimes that X-Men kept going well into the MCU's first and second phases. I genuinely forget that sometimes. But but this era is, it's definitely rough. It definitely has more bad than good. But I think this also was an era where you had just some swings in different creative directions, some different ideas. I mean, not that the MCU is overly cookie cutter. I actually think that I would defend anybody who says the entire MCU is just one note. I think that it definitely has elements of that, but there's still some different vibes in the MCU. But this era of Marvel, there really was just kind of all over the place as far as how we're going to approach comic book movies. And I applaud the effort of this movie very much. And what it did well, I think it did very well. And I think with the exception of like X2 and the first two Spider-Mans, I think this is one of the best examples. And the first Blade. And I kind of love the second Blade, even though it's got... Yeah, I love the second Blade, even though I think objectively it's got some issues. I think this was...
most people will consider the second Blade superior to the first.
Oh, I would disagree with that.
No way, man.
Oh.
The second Blade's so much better than the first.
Yeah. I like the second Blade. I just, the first one has this rawness to it that I just kind of love. It's definitely not as polished, but there's just something visceral about it. I mean, and I think that Wesley Snipes is just in his absolute peak in that first movie.
What was that,
honestly, like, no offense to like sequels, but there's not a lot of sequels that are like better than the original or better than the first in a series. The Empire Strikes Back maybe being the only one to me that I can think of off the top of my head.
There's a couple.
Star Trek 2. You think Winter Soldier was better than the first?
Yeah,
I think the Winter Soldier is in the top 3, if not possibly the best MCU movie.
I love First Avenger. Wow. Winter Soldier's better in my opinion, and I love First Avenger.
Oh yeah,
but Winter Soldier's better. I mean, off the top of my head,
like the number of second sequels that are better than the first movie. It's definitely skewed. So the data's skewed in one direction. It's like a 75-25 split at best.
Well, the thing is, I think
I mean, Shrek 2, The Dark Knight, Empire, Winter Soldier, but not many more.
Godfather
Blade 2,
no.
Spider-Man 2,
yeah, X2. I mean, it's debatable, but I think Aliens was able to almost...
Well, Aliens just made a completely different film.
Yeah, but as far as like a sequel that you could argue is better, I mean, not by a massive amount, but there's actually a conversation there, which is rare. Yeah.
Now, I have a question. For Patrick and Brian. Recently, I've been asking this question whenever we're facing a movie that's not exactly what you would call the cream of the crop, the very best. How would you fix this movie? If you had the chance to go back in time and make a couple of just small recommendations, how would you fix this movie?
Well, how long? What was the runtime on this one? Couple hours?
2 hours.
2 hours and 6 minutes.
See, I would give it the third hour to expand on a lot of those story elements and actually show the recovery, maybe, show a little bit more reconnaissance in terms of figuring out how Howard Saint's life worked and how best to dismantle it. Like I think you said it, Zach, when we were going through about like, okay, here, from here on out, we're not going to take another breath the rest of the movie. And it's like, they needed more breaths, I think. And again, taking the time to actually recover the Punisher on film would have helped. And, pacing, taking that extra hour and giving the scenes that needed a minute or 2 minutes extra to flesh it out more, give them that time. and make it 3 hours and call it a Marvel movie.
I'm not sure I'd go 3 hours, but I do think this movie could have benefited for some more time. I mean, I would have. I mean, this is an easy thing to say, right? But I would have doubled the budget. I would have let
Oh, yeah.
I would have definitely had the opening establishment for Frank Castle be some special forces operation where you really introduce the audience to just how capable he is. And I also would have
Right.
found a way to introduce kind of just his toughness, his pain tolerance in the beginning.
Yeah.
Found a way to do that.
Dude,
Okay.
that's such a good point because like person of interest, right? The first episode, he, when he's the homeless guy basically beats up a bunch of dudes in the subway and you're like, this dude can handle himself.
Yeah.
So it's an easy stretch to like then throw him into the different situations he gets in.
Yeah, because
Whereas this
nothing.
one is in this, he just is basically he's undercover.
Yeah, there's actually
You don't
nothing in
actually
the
get to see him do
opening.
anything.
Yeah, the opening sequence
Yeah.
does nothing to establish how capable of a guy he is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I would have done that. I think this is a movie where, and again, this is easy to say, but this is one of the big differences between movies that are amazing and movies that struggle. A creative cohesiveness where the studio,
Mhm.
the director, and all the leads were on the same page with the tone of the film, the style of the film. Because I do feel like John Travolta and Thomas Jane were on slightly different creative wavelengths. That they had different ideas for what the end result of this movie needed to be. And I think that if they had been a little more synced up, I think if this, either commit to R or make it PG-13. I mean, I would have preferred R, and I'm glad they kept some of it. But I also think that final sequence.
You just liked the boobs.
Well, I do like boobs, but the final sequence should have been. I'm trying to imagine how they would have created this. Basically, the Punisher's coming, and John Travolta's character is behind several layers of guys, and he's getting like you kind of have the back and forth of the Punisher just working his way through all of his men and this whole industry that he his whole organization, and he's just continually getting reports of how just nothing can stop him, and there's just this very well constructed action sequence where the Punisher is coming and he's getting more and more nervous and just scared and you're showcasing Frank Castle's ability. He's just and he should have gone through dozens and dozens of men, if not more. I think the last action scene could have been set. It just could have been grander, could have been bigger, and could have been a much more satisfying finale. Even though it was satisfying, it was still on the shorter side, the lower. You can tell they didn't have a lot of money.
So one thing I do appreciate is that they actually it was realistic for him to send a mine into the room to soften everybody up. Because him just walking up the stairs and being like, "Hey guys," and start shooting, he's not going to make it out of that because there's way too many guns pointed at him. So I appreciated the realism of him softening the targets before going into a crowded room.
Yeah.
I really did like that.
Similar to how he used the bow to take out the
the guys outside, so
yeah.
no one knew he was there for sure.
Showing him making sound tactical decisions was well done, and I would have enjoyed more of that. Like, I mean, I think that you could have made that action scene 7 to 10 minutes longer, and if you had paced it, edited it correctly, and written it well, it could have not dragged at all. It would have just been really cool.
So my theory is it's very similar to you guys. The willingness to make it a little bit longer, for one. I want to kind of color inside the lines, like I had the conversation several times about, what would you have done differently with the Star Wars sequels? And a lot of it's just like, a lot of people are just like, I would have done and just kind of changed everything. Where I'm just like, let's stay within the lines that have been established.
Yeah, keep the bones, and then I agree.
So in this particular case, they've got to account for budget and runtime, right? So I would say cutting down on superfluous action. One of the things that I would have done actually is kept it to his core family, literally just like the comics, his wife and kids, they're the victims. You want to throw in his dad or something, fine. So that way you're not doing this huge, big action sequence, or you can still do the big action sequence, but no car chase, no like these guys working their way through a crowd and killing 30 people. I think the newspaper said in that thing. And then, well, I mean, honestly, I'd tell them not to hire John Travolta and to hire somebody with a little bit more pizzazz, and maybe you could even film in a better location. But yeah, extending the action sequence, adding a little bit more character depth, like showing the moment of galvanization where he decides to become the Punisher, where he decides to take on this mission of, in this particular case, vengeance, that eventually turns into a life calling of taking out crime, just in general. I would have also, if possible, I understand that cost, but like set the finale somewhere more interesting for a bigger, more bombastic sequel. Put him on a boat or something. Put him on a yacht, and Castle has to work himself up through a boat. Imagine a scene where he's pulling himself out of the water and it's all dark and black. And he's crawls up onto the side of the boat and he's taking these guys out one by one and works his way up from the engine room all the way to the bad guy type of thing. Like, be a really cool sequence.
Yeah.
But again, it's all in the past.
Yeah.
And we can't really change anything. I'd also make it very clear whether or not that monologue at the end is a narration or part of the letter.
Yeah. Well, I just thought of this.
Back and listened to it again while we were going through the credits, and it does feel because the last thing he says before he goes to town on, when he's gearing up, the letter never finishes, and so then it's like and then he signs off at the end, when he's by his car, "I'm the Punisher," or whatever he says, right?
Okay.
He kind of identifies himself.
Call me
so
the Punisher.
It definitely feels like it's the end of that letter. So that makes it a little better, but I do agree with you. The reason the Iron Man thing works and this doesn't is it feels different.
Yeah. Well,
and it's an event.
I was just thinking about the beginning. I think that a pretty easy way to both get your Hollywood villain, but also be a little more true to the comics, is his wife and son could have absolutely still been killed, but been caught in the middle of something that was like they were randomly caught up in something, but it was the fault of a very specific, a mob boss, or you can keep, a specific villain who becomes, the target of Frank because he, I have a scene where Frank, overhears, sees him on a newscast, talking, or I don't know, some way to make it where he doesn't care. Like it's just so nonchalantly about the death of innocence in the middle of this situation, and makes it personal for Frank without having Frank being targeted.
Yeah,
and that way you kind of get both. You kind of get that the system itself that Frank's fighting, while at the same time for this particular story, one specific man is the target of his vengeance, and you could have had kind of both happen at the same time and been more true to his comic roots, while at the same time giving an audience a really specific villain to hate.
Yeah, there are ways they could have done it. And again, I think that this movie, I've had this rating system in my head recently of like almost like 7 points of like absolute garbage, bad, not good enough, just fine, good, exceptional, and like masterpiece,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this falls very very much into that middle portion of like acceptable.
I would call it good, honestly.
Into good.
Yeah.
But with like hints of just not quite good enough.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of like numbers, so to speak, as far as a rating system. But yeah, if you were going to put this in this is definitely above average, but it just falls a little bit short of moving into the, classic or like very good category.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
I think the things that set it above others, that, like you said, above average, is things like the Russian fight.
Oh yeah,
that's the stuff that does it. The Harry Heck thing.
Yeah, and as much as I'm absolutely biased towards my love of Thomas Jane as an actor. I also genuinely think that he did a very good job in this role. I think it was a good casting decision, and if he had been in a different creative environment and he had had time to do it again in one or two more films, I think that he would be. I think that he would be up there. The conversation for like perfect casting for a comic book character.
Yeah, and it's really hard when it comes to the Punisher because, as we'll see in the next one, Ray Stevenson, the late Ray Stevenson, who just love that guy. His take on Frank Castle is very true to certain comic book runs. Like they took him right out of the mid 2000s comic books. Like it's insane how closely they get him to it, and just in terms of attitude. Because the Punisher, in some of the more, like the last 20, 25 years, he's ugly. And he's, like, and the comics are drawn ugly as well. And Ray Stevenson does such a fantastic job at that. And then John Barenthal in the TV shows. God, the dude's just a powerhouse. He's fantastic. But this one, I think, is my favorite, even if he's not the most comic book accurate, in terms of balancing looking competent, good acting, and being likable.
Yeah.
Without being goofy.
Yeah, I think that he's as good
and
as
I've never seen Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah, I think that he's a great translation to a live action version of a comic book character, because you can't make it perfectly like the comics. Whenever you adapt something, you got to tweak it, and he's a good way to put it in live action, to put the character in live action and make it balance well. Yeah, I really like his portrayal. And John Bernthal, I think that his portrayal, as much as I liked the show, I thought that his portrayal in Daredevil, the kind of introduction to his character, was his best in a way.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. Like, I liked the Punisher show. I was so sad when they canceled it after 2 seasons due to contract stuff, not due to any type of viewership. But his introduction in Daredevil season 2, and that episode where they're just talking philosophy while Daredevil's chained to a chimney, is the single best adaptation of the Punisher on film.
Yeah, it was very, very good.
But I also fight that I think that the first season of Daredevil, and extending slightly into the second one, but I don't like ninjas, the first season of Daredevil is the single greatest adaptation of a comic book ever put on film.
Really? Okay.
Yes. There's you could sit there and talk about stuff like The Dark Knight and even Endgame and all that stuff. It's just like, there's better quality movies out there. There's better quality even shows out there. But in terms of translating a comic book character and setting and vibe from a comic book to a movie, or to film, I should say, keeping it, one, faithful, and then keeping it to quality. Daredevil season 1 and some of season 2. Best comic book adaptations on film.
Interesting. I mean, I adore that season, so I'm not like immediately disagreeing with you, but I like you maybe want to think about it now. So, but we should wrap this up.
There's some contenders in there. There's some contenders.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2, Iron Man 1. I get that.
I mean,
Spawn.
What? Spawn? Spawn?
Oh my gosh. And on that note, let's wrap this up. Oh gosh. Oh man. Well, this has been a lot of fun, guys. I'm glad we got to watch this one, and we are going to jump right into Warzone. I need to watch Warzone. I have never seen it, and I'm looking forward to watching it on my own, and then watching it with you guys.
Okay. Pat, have you seen Punisher Warzone?
I have not. I am unavailable for Warzone, partially, mainly because I haven't seen it, and I don't necessarily. So, spoiler alert to our listeners: my schedule doesn't always work. That's why you don't always get me, and so I have to kind of pick and choose. And there's certain movies we've got that are unmissable. I have to be there for them. All the Star Treks. Once we get into Star Wars next year, you're going to hear me a lot because I'm going to be around for all those. But select a few little gems. Again, Punisher. Just yeah. My brother and I loved this movie. We loved watching this movie, and then they came out with like a companion game that was
Oh my
also really
god.
fun. Yes, it was a lot
Brutal
of fun.
torture sequences in that game.
Yes,
I
it was the
forgot to
best.
bring this up. Oh my god. Pat,
What do
can
you
I talk
got?
about the
Go
game
ahead,
for a
Zach.
moment?
Yeah, I could keep talking about the game. Sure. Yeah, just a lot of fun, and the fight sequences felt similar to the fight with the Russian, right? Basically, you go into a room, you can like throw guys into an air conditioners, and throw cut parts of bodies off. I mean, I don't know about parts of bodies, but I just remember you could do all sorts of bad things to people, and it felt so great.
But also, the son that dies with the anti-personnel mine at the end is the villain in that game. He survived by some miraculous reason, and he becomes the classic Punisher villain called
Jigsaw.
uh, Jigsaw. Thank you. I wanted to say Patchwork. I'm like, that's not right. Jigsaw. And the ending of the game is that he breaks into Stark Industries and steals an Iron Man suit. And the end of the game is Thomas Jane's Punisher, in theory, fighting Iron Man. And I just love that so much. Okay, I'm done.
Okay.
Stop talking. We need to end it. But man, I could just continue talking about this. We didn't even get to talk about all the great, crazy symbolism that's currently going on in the world surrounding the Punisher. But maybe we'll get to that with Warzone.
Yeah, we have one
There
more.
we go.
But yeah, unfortunately, because one of these days, if this really, if we run out of movies one day and we have to start going to TV shows, we'll see if we have that quality problem one day. But yeah, unfortunately, there's no other movie depiction of Punisher after Warzone, at least not as of the time of recording. We'll see if that changes. But yeah, it's been fun. I'm looking forward to next week, and this has been a lot of fun. So thank you guys.
All
And
right,
always good to
fellas,
hear your
thank
voice again,
you.
Patrick.
Oh yeah, I'll be around.
All right. Well, have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night, guys.
There's doors and corners, kid. If you don't clear the room, if you don't come in slow, that room will eat you.